Airport. The airport wants to double the number of passengers it can process from 9 to 18 million a year. New figures show the number of part-time students enrolling at universities in England last autumn fell by more than a quarter compared with the year before. The Higher Education Funding Council for England, which published the findings, suggests some recruits may have been put off by the rise in tuition fees. Our education correspondent Luke Walton reports.
A third of those in UK higher education study part-time. The sharp drop in enrolments in England follows smaller declines in previous years. Since last autumn, those studying part-time in England have been eligible for student loans for the first time. But today's figures suggest for many that didn't mitigate the impact of rising fees. Part-time students are more likely to be older and come from poor backgrounds compared to full-time equivalents. So the wider economic situation may have put some off.
A Hertfordshire landlord is helping police with their inquiries by flashing up images of suspected criminals on his pub's TV. Police are hoping the initiative at the Red Lion in Stansted Abbots could be rolled out across the county, but would it put the punters off their pints?
I wouldn't have any friends who are involved with the police, to be honest, so I wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
I suppose I'm not really expecting to see anyone I know there, so it shouldn't make me uncomfortable. It's the same as watching Crime Watch, isn't it? So, you just don't want to scream and point and go, I can't believe he did that.
And would you be surprised if you suddenly saw a friend up there?
I can't comment.
You and Duncan in the pub there. Our sports news for you. England's cricketers have reached 267 for 2 at stumps on day one of the second test against New Zealand in Wellington. And the weather, hail, sleet or snow, and a top temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, that's 39 degrees Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC Three Counties Radio. First for news.
This is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Yesterday we were talking about bad backs and things like that, and I had a little gripe in my back, I think. Well, after the show, I was in agony. I couldn't sleep last night. I spent a large portion of last night standing with my back against the wall, trying to stretch my back. I was in agony. It's all down my left leg. I think that's sciatica. I think that is, although I always thought that was a urine infection. I did. Turns out it's like a bad back. And anyway, I'm in agony. So if I'm not sounding focused this morning, it's for that very reason. I'm suffering for you, dear listener. Coming up on the show, lots of stuff, including a Buckinghamshire MP who will raise concerns about Bucks NHS in the House of Commons today. As you heard in the news, a pub is going to be displaying wanted pictures of very naughty criminals. And we speak to, I don't know, perhaps the world's worst driver. It's taken 25 years or something for her to pass her driving test. No, too long. Lots of ways to get in touch as always. You can go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send us a text, 81333. Start your text 3CR. Put your name on it, please. Or you can give me a phone call, 08459 455 555. Who's going to be the first caller of the day? You or him? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
And here's a cheeky little question for you. If, like me, you were probably glued to the radio last night or the television, listening to the new Pope coming out on the balcony. Oh, it's a new Pope. Hey, everyone, it's a new... Oh, what a surprise, it's another really, really old man. And the question on everyone's lips this morning is... And this it doesn't mean to be flippant. It sounds flippant, it isn't flippant. But why is the Pope always old? Why is the Pope always old? This new guy, Pope Frankie, he's 76 years old. The last one that's going out is 78 years old. Why didn't they get, like a Richard Chamberlain lookalike? Or, some young... 40s. Imagine a 40-year-old Pope. Wouldn't that be cool? I think we'd all go, ooh, yeah, brave decision. Why is the Pope always old? 08459 455 555. Now, a Buckinghamshire MP will raise questions in the House of Commons today about his concerns over Bucks NHS. He's calling for greater accountability and transparency in the NHS and will speak about 2 cases of 2 deaths in their care, one at Stoke Mandeville and the other at Wickham Hospital. Well, Steve Baker joins me now. Morning, Steve.
Good morning, Iain.
Steve, what are you going to say in Parliament later on today?
Well, before I go on to that, can I just begin by saying we need to get this into context. We've got some excellent services in Buckinghamshire, including the cardiology and stroke units at Wickham. And I've been given categorical assurances that the majority of patients are treated well in Buckinghamshire.
Right.
OK, but later today we're going to be discussing accountability and transparency in the NHS. The context is the Francis report. As a result of that report into the Mid-Staffs Hospital, the medical director of the NHS Commissioning Board is going to be investigating our health services in Buckinghamshire. Unfortunately, they've had high mortality. That's a higher number of deaths than expected for a couple of years. So Sir Bruce is going to be looking into whether there are any sustained failings. Now, this is a good opportunity for hospitals locally to reassure the public because we've had a number of problems. You asked which specifically. Well, one is Edward Maitland. Now, Mr. Maitland was a frail man, unable to eat solid foods, and he died after he ate Weetabix in Wickham Hospital. His son, a paramedic, had given warning that he couldn't eat solid foods. He even provided his liquid food. But after a communication breakdown, he ended up eating solid food and he died.
So a nurse gave him some solid food when he was strictly fluids only?
That appears to be the case, yes. Now, I'm going to be careful outside of Parliament because I'm sitting here, I'm just a private citizen with no legal rights when I'm outside the chamber.
Of course.
So I'm going to be very careful what I say. The coroner's report is extremely careful not to assign blame. It says that food was made available to him and he ended up eating it. But to me, the situation's really quite simple. He couldn't eat solids. He did end up eating solids in the hospital. It was solid food in his lungs, which led to aspiration pneumonia and his death. And I'm going to be exploring that in greater detail once I'm inside the House of Commons.
And just to highlight, once you're inside the House of Commons, of course, and speaking, you have slightly more protection than you do as a chap on the telephone to me.
That's absolutely right, yes. Within the chamber of the House of Commons, MPs have an absolute right of free speech, which has got to be used responsibly, and of course I shall use it responsibly, because I am, on the whole, I am confident in our quality of our services locally.
And you said you had another case study that you were going to be mentioning, Steve.
Yes, the other one, tragically, Mr. Paul Ryan. He died in an ambulance en route to have his second leg removed. He has had vascular disease. He had 4 days of GP visits. He then had a 9-hour wait in A&E. He was sent home and told to expect a phone call. The phone call never came on the Monday. His wife asked should she rang the hospital. They didn't know about him. Should she call an ambulance? They said, no, call your GP. The GP referred them to an ambulance, which took 2 hours to arrive. And then, tragically, Mr. Ryan died on the way to the hospital. Now, his wife's explained that post-mortem it seems that he could not have been saved anyway, but really this sort of catalogue of misdirection and mismanagement just is totally unacceptable, and it plays. We've had other issues, 2 issues, where people have been incorrectly or failed to be referred from the minor injuries unit in Wickham across the road to cardiology and stroke. So we have excellent units. The challenge is that if people do turn up under their own steam, they need to get across there. But these 3 cases then are connected by this problem of getting people efficiently to the excellent services that we have.
Stephen, you head of CQC recently been appointed. Do you think that that's going to help the situation?
Well, I've just seen Jeremy Hunt yesterday, and he'll be speaking today, and I know that Jeremy is putting an enormous amount of effort into the CQC to change it, to make sure that it's much more able to give us reassurance on the quality of hospital services. The Prime Minister's sent Sir Bruce into a range of trusts, including our own. We're currently going through a process of making sure that our assurance about the quality of care is much, much better, and that includes reforming the CQC. The Mail are reporting today that gagging clauses on whistleblowers are going to be banned. So I'm sure Jeremy Hunt will talk about that later. But we've got to get to a point where the NHS is transparent. All too often I have second-hand accounts of things that are problems. I can't do anything about them second-hand. So I just really welcome this opportunity the NHS has locally, through Sir Bruce's investigation, to properly reassure the public about the quality of service locally.
Steve, I appreciate you coming on this time of the morning. That's Steve Baker, Buckinghamshire MP. He'll be raising questions in the House of Commons today over his concerns over Bucks NHS. And you heard there a couple of quite powerful case studies. I hate to use the word case studies. It dehumanises them slightly. The people who have been severely damaged by potential failings. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. If you've got an account of something that happened to you in a hospital, give us a call. And also, the main thrust of the show today is, why is the Pope always so old?
Got a call from an old friend, we used to be real close. Said he couldn't go on the American way. Closed the shop, sold a house, bought a ticket to the West Coast. Now he gives them a stand-up routine in LA.
This is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. Why on earth is the Pope so old? 76! Yeah, I was listening on the radio last night, and it is amazing how commentators are so good on TV and radio at talking about nothing. Imagine describing a crowd in Rome for an hour, because that's what they were doing. That's what they were doing, describing a crowd. Incredible. My friend said whoever describes a crowd for that long deserves to be Pope. They're so good at it. But then the new Pope has stepped out onto the balcony, and he really does look very serene. He looks like a man who's at peace with himself and with God. There he is, smiling now, and it really is a very serene... Oh, for goodness sakes. For goodness sakes. Why is the Pope so old? 08459 455 555 6:15. Well, she's back. Let's hope she's feeling well. It's Sophie Tyler with the Jam Cams.
Beds, hearts and bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. Well, not looking too bad out there at the moment. All moving fairly nicely on the motorways. M25 in particular is looking good heading down the western stretch, and the M1 moving nicely as well. Now, the usual delays not yet causing too much of a problem. Looking good around the North Orbital Road, and the trains and the tubes also looking good on the departure boards this morning. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Sophie, you're okay? You sound... You weren't with us
Awful.
yesterday. You sound... Well, you do. You sound awful. What's wrong?
I don't know, I just can't seem to shake this sore throat. But I feel guilty being off work ill, so I thought I'd come back in today if it was okay.
We had Adam on yesterday, and he was, I've got to say, he was excellent.
Pressure.
Under pressure. Speak to you in a little bit. Morning, it's 6:16. It's Thursday, the 14th of March. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. The MP for Wickham is set to raise serious concerns about standards of care in Buckinghamshire's hospitals later. Catholics around the world have been welcoming the election of the new old Pope. In sport, England's cricketers have reached 267 for 2 at stumps. I don't know what that means. On day one of the second test against New Zealand in Wellington. The weather today for Beds, Herts and Bucks. Hail, sleet or snow and a top temperature of 4 degrees. Coming up, imagine you're in the boozer, having a crafty pint, when suddenly a photo of one of your friends flashes up on the big screen labelled as being wanted by the police. Well, if you're visiting a certain pub in Hertfordshire, that could happen. We'll find out more before 6:30.
BBC Three Counties Radio. Nick Coffer across Beds, Herts and Bucks.
This Friday I'm live from Bletchley Park. I'll be taking part in the Enigma Challenge, finding out about the history of the park and why it was so important during the war.
Nick Coffer.
There'll be a little bit of light comic relief, music from the Three Bells, and I'll be getting crafty with threads and patches.
Nick Coffer.
Live from Bletchley Park, Friday from midday.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The 80s. Let me take you back to the 80s when it was acceptable. It was acceptable to make a motion picture about a gentleman falling in love with a computer, because that's what Electric Dreams is about. And also, it was acceptable to make a film about 2 teenage lads who make a really sexy woman out of a computer. Weird Science. The 80s were a little bit rubbish, really, weren't they? But this song's brilliant. If you want to give us a call, 08459 455 555.
Time
dawned on me, I've never actually seen Electric Dreams, the movie. I wonder if my local Ritz Video has it on VHS, because I'm going to go and check it out. Weird Science, on the other hand, is a downright classic. It's a classic, very, very raunchy. I remember watching it as a 15-year-old boy and thinking, wow, very raunchy movie. The 80s were raunchy. Now, imagine you're in the boozer, having a cheeky pint, or maybe a Cinzano. Do people still drink Cinzano? I don't know if anyone does anymore. Or hooch, if you're, younger than 20, and a photo of one of your friends flashes up on the big screen, labelled as being wanted by the police. Well, that could happen at a pub in Hertfordshire. The Red Lion pub in Stansted Abbots is one of the first venues to be involved in this new scheme. Well, our reporter, Iain Duncan, caught up with two locals in the pub yesterday and asked them what they made of it.
I think it could be quite useful, obviously, if it helps with crime. I suppose I'm not really expecting to see anyone I know there, so it shouldn't make me uncomfortable.
What would happen, though, if you did see a friend on there?
I don't know. It's the same as watching Crime Watch, isn't it? So, just don't want to scream and point and go, I can't believe he did that. So, yeah, I don't know.
Would it be a bit of a shock?
It would be a shock, yes.
What about the fact that they can advertise local events and what's going on at the pub?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And there's pictures up at the moment about, food, etc. And I think, that does generate interest. And also when competitions and things. So, yeah, I think it definitely, it's engaging.
Do you think people will take notice of it, though, or will they be preoccupied with what they're doing in the pub anyway, eating and drinking?
Well, I think the food is really good here, so it's quite easy to be distracted, and the portions are quite big, so you can spend a lot of time looking at your plate and sort of being quite focused on that.
I suppose there are those who'd argue that the police side of things is an infringement of civil liberties. Would you agree with that?
Perhaps, but it's no different to it being Crime Watch. I'd just say it's probably a bit depressing, really, for me coming out for a pub lunch and sort of being reminded about crime. But otherwise, I don't think it's any different to Crime Watch, is it?
And it's an effective way for businesses to advertise?
I think possibly, yes. I mean, I would say, if I saw some things that were for the home, that I would think it would be, potentially useful. Yeah, but I love the fact that it's advertising the food and stuff like that. I think that's useful just to, give me something to think about and thinking, I'd quite like to try that.
How about you? What do you think about it?
I totally agree with my friend. I think it's quite important that we have these visual aspirations on that we can actually look at. I'll probably be more interested in handbags and shoes, though, up on the screen, but obviously it's always worth supporting the police.
And I think they're putting up some people that are wanted, but also some important safety messages as well about how people can look after their property. Do you think that's something you want to see in a pub?
Yes, I think anything like that helps us to be a little bit more secure in our homes, and anything like that will really help.
And I suppose it's often easy to leave something in the car when you dash out for a drink.
Yes, it can be. Well, luckily I've had it happen to me before, so I'm very cautious about that sort of thing. But it would help other people, I'm sure.
And would you be surprised if you suddenly saw a friend up there?
I can't comment.
That laugh goes on just a little bit too long. When someone laughs, it's... Oh, that was Iain Duncan in a boozer. Well, later on we'll be talking to the landlord of the Red Lion at Stansted Abbots and to Hertfordshire Police in about an hour's time on the programme. I think that I'd love to be in a pub. I don't go to pubs anymore, but I'd love to be in a pub and on the screen, wanted in your area. And then criminals come up and stuff. I like that. I used to love Crime Watch. I used to Sky Plus Crime Watch. Or video it. I used to video it and watch it the next day. It was like a kind of scary... It was like a horror film, but real. Horror film based on a true story, like Amityville. Let's have a look at the front pages of the newspapers, shall we? The Independent. Conflict in Syria creates new wave of British jihadists. Over 100 UK Muslims thought to have gone to fight in conflict. An outcry at Prince's Saudi visit as 7 are executed. Prince Charles will be flying into a human rights controversy when he touches down in Saudi Arabia tomorrow after 7 men were executed in public yesterday despite concerns about the safety of their convictions. And there's a picture of the new Pope. Doesn't he look serene? Doesn't he look at one with God? The nonsense they were coming out with last night on the I was listening to it on LBC. Oh, the rubbish they were coming out with, and watched a bit of it on BBC Two or the BBC News. Oh dear. He's 76 years old, he's Argentinian, we've lost the Falklands. Basically, that's what that is. Say goodbye to the Falklands, kids. It was nice while it lasted, wasn't it? We have to hand them back now because the Pope wants them back. The Times, a new world Pope. The first Pope from the Americas is to model himself on St. Francis of Assisi. James Bone reports from Rome. An Argentinian cardinal who claims that the Falkland Islands were usurped by Britain was elected Pope last night. Bye, Falklands! Bye, Falklands! Thanks very much! A Muslim peer blames Jewish conspiracy for jailing him. a Labour peer who was jailed for sending text messages shortly before his car was in a fatal motorway crash, has blamed his imprisonment on a Jewish conspiracy. Lord Ahmed claimed that his prison sentence for dangerous driving resulted from pressure placed on the courts by Jews who own newspapers and TV channels. Maybe it's because of the car crash and him sending texts. I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was because of that, as opposed to a Jewish conspiracy. Hey, look, the new Pope on the front of the Telegraph. Pope Francis the Humble. We failed to get to grips with ageing, ministers told. Well, they haven't in Rome. Look, they've got a 76-year-old as leader of one of the biggest religions in the world. Britain is woefully underprepared to cope with the sharp increase in the number of pensioners, ministers are warned today. A report from the House of Lords says that the elderly should already be concerned about their treatment in an NHS that's struggling to cope with their needs. What a juxtaposition of stories regarding age there. The Guardian. It's the Pope again. It's that crazy Pope. He's everywhere. Buenos Aires, Pope Francis. Dazed and amazed in St. Peter's Square. The Pope's everywhere. Now, this is a better picture. How did the Daily Mail get this picture? All of the pictures are looking up at the Pope. The Daily Mail has got a picture from behind the Pope. Which one of those naughty cardinals was tweeting? Which one of those cardinals... hang on a minute. He's not looking. I'll have this. After Mail campaign, Health Secretary bans gagging orders on hospital staff. Victory for NHS whistleblowers. Gagging clauses which have prevented hundreds of NHS whistleblowers speaking out are to be outlawed. The Daily Express, a little bit on the Pope. Arthritis, new jab to fight the pain. Single treatment will help millions. The Express seems to have found a cure for arthritis, Alzheimer's and cancer pretty much every day, really. And The Sun... holy smoke. New Catholic chief. Hand of God. Argentinian is Pope Francis I. The new Pope waves a blessing over Vatican crowds after his election last night sparked ecstasy in his homeland, Argentina. 08459 455 555. Very simple question. Why is the Pope so old? Why is the Pope so old? I know it's kind of... You have to progress through the... it's a promotion, isn't it? But get a 40-year-old hot Pope. That'll get people interested in religion again. It's the travel news now with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, hearts and bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, still not looking too bad out there at the moment. The motorways are still moving very nicely on the sensors. Looking good as well in the usual trouble areas. No problems on the North Alder Road or around the A421 eastbound at Buckingham at the moment. Now, don't forget, in Milton Keynes Village, the A4146, that's Tongwell Street, is closed due to ongoing resurfacing work just at the moment, just around at Lindisfarne Drive. Everything else, though, not too bad at all. Trains are still moving nicely on the departure boards, as are the tubes. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. It's nearly 6:30. Let's get the latest news and sport now with Catherine Boyle.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. The headlines. The MP for Wickham is set to raise serious concerns about standards of care in Buckinghamshire's hospitals later. Catholics around the world have been welcoming the election of the new Pope, and campaigners will gather outside Luton Town Hall this morning to protest against airport noise.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Let's start with rugby. Bedford beat the Army by 43 points to 29 in last night's Mobs Memorial match in Goldington Road. The Blues, who fielded Saracens flankers Jacques Berger for one half and Andy Saul for the other, ran in 7 tries and landed 4 conversions. They led 26-0 at half-time, but the Army hit back with 5 second-half tries and 2 conversions themselves. Earlier, the East Midlands beat the Army A-team 28-8. Arsenal have been knocked out of the Champions League on away goals by Bayern Munich. Mikel Arteta says the side must now concentrate on qualifying for next season's competition.
That's a priority for us. We can't win any trophies this year. That's finished. That's 8 years now. It's too much. But the minimum target we can ask for is to get qualified for the Champions League.
Jonathan Trott hit an unbeaten 121 as England's cricketers reached 267 for 2 at stumps on day 1 of the second test against New Zealand. Trott says his performance in Wellington this morning was needed following his poor batting in the first test.
I'm always disappointed when I don't get in and get runs that, on offer. If you get a good ball, you can't really be too upset about it. But, I felt I pretty much got myself out in both innings. And it's important not to be too hard on yourself, but you can't be too soft and say, well, next innings I'll get runs. You got to, when you get the chance, you got to take it.
And finally, Andy Murray will play Juan Martín del Potro in the quarterfinals of the Indian Wells Masters tennis after he beat Carlos Berlocq in straight sets 7-6, 6-4. During their match, Berlocq complained to the chair umpire that Murray was taking too long between points. Murray responded by complaining about his opponent's grunting.
When it's consistent, you can kind of get used to it, but when it's kind of coming from being silent to then an extremely loud noise and it's carrying through until you're hitting the ball, that's when it gets a bit too much.
And that's your latest news in sport. I know. Yeah, it is a bit off-putting.
Is it off-putting?
Yeah.
Would that would put you off? I was just testing the theory. It's a little bit. Okay, well, we won't do that again. Thanks, Catherine.
Over there. That's Justin.
For goodness sakes! Let's try that again, shall we?
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
If you're playing tennis, though, someone going, it's hardly, there are worse things, aren't there? If you want to phone up and give us your best tennis grunt, 08459 455 555. I want to hear your tennis grunts this morning, please. And what things put you off when you're at work? Because if someone grunting, steady, is enough to put you off from your really well-paid job where you get to go around the world and not do a lot, then... do you know what I mean? I could work through that. Give us a call now. I want to hear your tennis grunts and the things that put you off at work. 08459 455 555. Other things coming up between now and 7 o'clock. Night flights are being discussed and protested against Luton Airport. Older drivers and drivers that have taken a long time to pass their test. And nappies. All that and more coming up. 08459 455 555. Now, campaigners will protest today outside Luton Town Hall against plans for increased numbers of night flights out of Luton Airport. The airport wants to double the number of passengers it can process from 9 to 18 million a year. But people living near to the airport are unhappy because it could mean more noise and night flights. Well, our reporter Justin Dealey is in Luton this morning. Morning, Justin.
Yes, hello, Ian. I'm actually in Flamstead with Andrew Lambourne, who's from a campaign group, and already the car is surrounded by angry protesters.
Wowzers.
Who are going to this meeting a bit later on. Now, a few moments ago, a plane went over, and this is what it sounded like. So that gives you a bit of an indication, Ian. Would you want to go to bed or wake up in the morning with that sort of sound?
Well, do you know what, Justin? I've just moved house. I've moved very close to an airport, so I do have that sound.
Yeah, that was your choice, I suppose.
And it was my choice. But I can understand why people would be disappointed with that.
They are disappointed. They will be protesting a bit later on. Joining me live here in our radio car is Andrew Lambourne. Andrew, you're from a campaign group. Tell us the name of that campaign group, please.
NoMoreNightFlights.com is a place to go to find out about this issue, which is affecting all the people around Luton Airport. And of course, the airport was here after the people. Luton was here before airport was built, and the people in South Luton are affected tremendously by these night flights.
I just played in a brief clip there of a plane. What's it like living here? Forget about any expansion plans. Right now, what's it like to live here in your home in Flamstead?
Well, to take an example, last night I was just getting off to sleep, round about midnight, plane goes over, toss and turn a bit afterwards. What happens 50 minutes later, another one goes over. Now, we're not as badly affected as Stevenage, Breachwood Green, Luton, Caddington. They're on the arrival and departures path. The planes are much closer there. What the airport's planning to do is to potentially double the number of flights at night. And that means, right up until midnight, there'll be planes. From 5 o'clock in the morning, there'll be planes. And if Luton Borough Council doesn't put in some planning controls, they're effectively saying you've only got 5 hours sleep.
OK, now the airport aren't coming on the programme today. However, they've sent us a statement. And they say there's a lot of misinformation about this. They say if expansion did go to 18 million passengers, the flights between 10 and 12, well, that will go from 25 to 45. So not quite double.
Damn it, that's almost double. And for as far as people are concerned, you know, you get a flight, it wakes you up, what happens? Your sleep's disturbed, and the World Health Organisation has shown that causes serious health problems.
Is that why you're wearing your dressing gown this morning here and it's freezing cold?
We're wearing our dressing gowns to make the point that we want to protest, and we want people to come out and help us protest against this plan to double night flights.
So you're all going to be in dressing gowns today outside Luton Borough Council saying enough is enough, we can't take this anymore.
Some of us will be in dressing gowns worth coming to see. Come to Luton Town Hall at 12:30 today. You can wave a placard, and at the end of the protest we're going to pop our balloons just to make the point that we want this night flights thing brought under control. We're not completely anti-airport, we use the airport. What we need is planning controls put in place by Luton Borough Council as part of the process of determining this planning application.
OK, lots of placards here. Can you tell us about the placards first of all, guys? Hang on a second. Hang on a second. 1 second. Tell us about the placards first of all.
OK, we've got some placards here, and they basically make the point we want no more night flights. How do we get it? By regulation, by planning controls put in place. This airport has no planning control whatsoever over its flights.
I'm sure if the airport were here, that they, of course, would say something else. So, they're not here at the moment, but you've got some challenging for us. Go on then, guys, take it away.
No more night flights. How do we get it? Planning controls. And we're going to pop our balloons to make the point.
Thank you very much indeed. There you go. Radio car surrounded by people with placards, wearing dressing gowns, chanting things which are going to be chanted later on outside Luton Borough Council. So it's going to be an interesting day, I think, Ian.
It's catchy. It's very catchy. Let me play devil's advocate for a second, Justin. Well, as I say, I've just moved to an airport, very, very close to a bigger airport than Luton Airport, and I have lots of night flights. I've been there 3 weeks. I've already tuned out the aeroplanes. I don't notice the sounds of the aeroplanes now. Can they not? Don't you just learn to tune it out? Just me just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, no, so it's a fair enough point. Andrew, Ian's saying here he's moved near to an airport, and the flights that are going over at night, he's now tuned himself out of that. He's got used to it. As somebody who's lived here for a number of years, and you're very proud to live here, can you not just tune yourself out of that?
You ask somebody who lives in Breachwood Green or Luton that same question.
What about you, though, here in Flamstead?
You can't tune it out. You know, they affect you, and in fact you get sensitised to it. You know, the World Health Organisation knows what they're talking about. I think this guy always says this kind of thing, and, you know...
He's making a point, though. He lives near an airport like you, and he's saying he's tuned out.
Yeah, but he says he wants to live near an airport because he likes aircraft noise.
He's still saying that he's tuned out.
No, I didn't say I liked aircraft noise.
We haven't.
So you can't do that?
Absolutely not.
OK, there you go. Absolutely not in.
I didn't say I liked aircraft noise. Justin, thank you very much indeed. Excellent stuff. Where are you off to next, Justin?
Going to be off to meet a lady who's in her 40s who has finally passed her driving test. First time, I believe. Something like 150 lessons. I'm going to be in her car. It may be the last time I ever broadcast on Three Counties Radio, so I'm off to meet her after 7.
Well, we've been trying to get rid of you for a long time, Justin. Today may be the day that we achieve it. Justin, thank you very much indeed. Just playing a little bit of a devil's advocate there with the whole flights thing. I have managed to tune it out. Let's put this out there, shall we? Do you live near an airport? Have you lived near an airport? How did you cope with the noise of the aeroplanes? Did it drive you mad? Or after a couple of weeks did you go, oh, the aeroplanes? Oh, I hadn't noticed. Let me know. 08459 455 555.
Well, no one told me about her, the way she lied. Well, no one told me about her, how many people cried. But it's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know? Why should I care? Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she looked. The way she acted, the colour of her hair. Her voice was soft and cool, her eyes were clear and bright, but she's not there. Well, no one told me about her. What could I do? Well, no one told me about her, though they all knew. But it's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know? Why should I care? Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she looked, the way she acted, the color of her hair. Her
one of the things that really gets my goat, I don't know why that's even a phrase, but apparently it is people who take driving test after driving test after driving test before they pass their... I've said this before, if you take 5 tests or more, well, you shouldn't be allowed to drive. You're not good enough. You don't meet the standards. Well, there's one woman in Hertfordshire who would completely disagree with me. It's taken 25 years for her to pass her test. Alex Smith, who lives in Stansted Abbots, has had 7 instructors, over 150 lessons. Well, she passed on her first test, though. Well, later our reporter Justin will be taking a spin with the lady herself, but we can speak to Stephen Dodd, the instructor who succeeded where all others failed. Good morning, Stephen.
Hello there.
What happened? Why did she take so long?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think she started in 1988 at 17, and I think she moved around the country a little bit, taking on various instructors, and it's just taken her to this point in time where she's now taken it on board and passed, so good for her.
So she passed on her first test, did she?
Yes, she did, yes.
But why was she so nervous about taking her test in the first place?
Well, do you know what? I don't know. I mean, I'm always up for a challenge. She phoned me up out of the blue, September last year, and just straight away said I'm an extremely nervous person. And she did. She told me that before every lesson, before she came out the front door, tears of frustration would build behind her eyes, and then a sharp intake of breath, and then off we went. So, and then I think she was really pleased when she got out of the car and finished the lesson. So it was a struggle for her.
Should someone like that be allowed to drive, Stephen?
Absolutely. We've all got our things that we've got to get up and over, and driving on the roads these days isn't an easy thing. And she wanted her freedom, her independence, and there it is. She's got it. She's earned it.
What did you do as a driving instructor to help calm her down and make her feel more comfortable?
Well, just very understanding. Mistakes happened. I think we got too close to a hedge once, and I lost my near side wing mirror with her. Just the glass, mind you. The casing stayed intact, but it's okay. It's all part and parcel of the learning to drive thing. So,
well, listen, we're sending our driving correspondent Justin Dealey out for a drive with Alex later on. Is he going to be okay?
Of course he will. Yes.
You sure?
Yes. No need for crash helmets or elbow pads. He'll be fine.
Okay. Well, Stephen, listen. Thank you very much indeed. That's Stephen Dodd, who managed to guide Alex Smith through her one and only, her singular driving test. Took her 25 years, though, to build up to that test. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. A couple of things I'm asking for today is I want your tennis grunts. Can you phone up and give us a grunt? Ugh! I was a bit more of a James Brown grunt than a tennis grunt. And also, what things irritate you at work? Andy Murray is irritated by those grunts. What irritates you at work? There's a few things here at BBC Three Counties that irritate me, I'll tell you that for certain. No names, no pack drill. Here's the travel news, Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Beginning to look busy now on the A405 North Orbital Road, just approaching the M25 junction 21A roundabout. Usual delays for this time in the morning. Everything else not looking too bad on the whole. The M25 is moving well down the western stretch. No problems on the M1 and the M40 also looking good as well on the speed sensors at the moment. Now the trains and the tubes are both still looking good on the departure boards at the moment. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. Morning, it's 6:45. It's Thursday the 14th of March. I'm Iain Lee and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. The MP for Wickham is set to raise serious concerns about standards of care in Buckinghamshire's hospitals later on today. Catholics around the world have been welcoming the election of the new Pope. In sport, Andy Murray beat Carlos Belloc in straight sets, 7-6, 6-4 at the Indian Wells Tennis, despite complaining about the Argentinian's grunting. Coming up, we're talking nappies. Would you opt for washable nappies if the council said they'd give you cash back to do so? Well, that's what Bedford Borough Council's promising. We'll find out more before 7. 08459 455 555. Let's get the latest weather now. Here's Elizabeth Rossini.
Beds, Herts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hello, a very good morning to you, Ian. It's a bit of a windscreen scrapey start to the day. There are some very low temperatures out there. -3, -4 degrees Celsius at the moment we've got across much of the three counties. So a very cold start. There's some mist patches out there as well. They should lift and clear quite nicely into the morning. In fact, a nice crisp way to start the day. There's some decent spells of sunshine, some blue skies through the morning after that mist clears. Now temperatures should rise nicely to between around 5 and 7 degrees Celsius, actually. That's 45 in Fahrenheit for St Albans, for Luton, Stevenage, Milton Keynes and Aylesbury as well. So it's not going to be a bad looking day. Certainly we've lost those hefty showers from yesterday. We might just see 1 or 2 light showers in places. They could even turn a bit wintry over the high ground in places too, but generally not a bad looking day. Just turning a bit cloudier into the afternoon. The sunshine a bit hazy, particularly across parts of Bedfordshire, I would say. Now into this evening we're going to see a few changes. It is going to be a much milder night. The cloud will start to increase and we'll see a few outbreaks of light patchy rain by dawn tomorrow. We'll start the day off tomorrow with a big hike in temperature, actually up to 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, so a lot milder than it is at the moment. And then tomorrow lots of thick cloud around, outbreaks of patchy rain that will turn heavier as we head into tomorrow evening. The weekend is looking a lot milder, a strong southwesterly breeze at times and a few outbreaks of rain, particularly on Saturday, but it's all going to get cold again into next week. Sorry about that, Ian.
Thanks very much, Elizabeth.
You can listen to BBC Three Counties Radio in so many different ways.
On FM
95.5,
103.8
and 104.5.
On AM
630 and 1161.
Online at bbc.co.uk/3
counties and on DAB
Digital Radio.
Retune your digital radio now and look out for BBC 3CR.
Bringing local radio to you
in more ways than ever before.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teacher, leave them kids alone. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone.
Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio, 08459 455 555. Old popes. Grunting. And what irritates you at work? Those are all the things you can call. You can call it about anything, but those are just some ideas. You probably want to talk about this as well. All parents, would you opt for washable nappies if the council said they'd give you cash back to do so? Well, that's what Bedford Borough Council is promising. Their nappy cashback scheme gives parents £25 back once they've spent 50 quid on washable nappies to help save the environment. But would that be incentive enough for you to try it, or is it all too much hassle? With me now is St Albans mum, Chrissy. Morning, Chrissy.
Morning, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm OK, thank you. And Eve Bell, who started online cloth nappy company Babamboo. Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's right. Hi, morning.
Eve, why washing nappies? Are they really better for the environment?
Definitely.
How?
Well, the UK throw around 2 billion disposable nappies into landfill each year. It costs the UK taxpayer 10p for each disposable nappy. That's £10 million a year. But also, who wants all them nappies going to landfill that take 500 years for each nappy to decompose?
Well, yeah, but who wants to put a filthy nappy and boil it and clean it or put it in the washing machine?
It's just a myth. It's just an urban myth. That's what mums used to do 30 years ago. These days, it's just put it in a nappy bucket. You can't smell it.
In a nappy bucket?
Yeah, just a nappy bucket with a lid. So instead of going to the bin, you put it in a nappy bucket, put it in the washing machine, along with all your other nappies. 1 extra wash load a week. It goes in the washing machine, it comes out clean. No boiling, no scrubbing.
Hang on a minute. I'm not having a bucket full of dirty nappies in my house for a week.
Well, you don't smell it. It's just the way it is, but you don't smell it. It's the same as when you walk past a bin. It's the same as that, really.
Yeah, bin filled with... Now, Chrissy, what do you think to washing nappies?
Well, I don't want to advocate either way, really, but when your team contacted me, I thought it was quite an interesting question, because when I was pregnant, I did buying the cloth nappies. There was an incentive from the government. I can't remember how much it was. I think it was a bit more. But to be honest, after about a week, I'm a working mum. I went back earlier than I expected. I just found I couldn't keep up with it, and expecting my childminder to scrape nappies, put them in a bag, give them back to me, and wash them, and do all of that, and they just weren't drying. I was just having to put them on radiators, and to be able to have a couple of cycles worth, so you're going to need about 7 a day, 6, 7 a day, and about £12 each.
Well, but Chrissy, Eve is saying that there's no extra work. It's 1 extra load a week.
I had to disagree because you were washing them daily, so that you then ended up having another set. So if the council gives you £25 to buy some, I did a quick look. I mean, it's been about 5 years for me.
Yes.
That'll buy you 2 nappies.
Well, it's not like that now so much. You could buy a set of nappies, 20 to 25 nappies for about £200. The laundry over the years of your baby being in them is probably about £50. So it's about £250 versus about £1,000 that you might spend on disposables over the time before your baby potty trains.
I was reading an article last night. It was a bit out of date. And again, I'm not advocating either way. I just thought it was a really interesting question. I bought the cloth ones because I just wanted to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. But after having quite a good discussion last night on Twitter, if people start using their tumble dryers, that actually makes them less environmentally friendly.
Oh, definitely. I totally agree with you there. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm not advocating my brand above other brands, but there's definitely brands out there that my nappies come out of the washing machine and they need an hour's dry on an airer. They dry really quick. That's the whole benefit of them. So there's some that take 12 hours to dry. Where there's some.
It's convenience, though, isn't it, Eve? Because listen, I got 2 boys. One of them's still in nappies, and it's all well and good getting a nappy that you don't throw away, but just when you're out and about, you want to put a pair of pull-ups on and just get on with it. You can't spend time messing around.
Yeah, I mean, you get used to it. To be honest, it's same as Chris says. I'm not advocating it either way, but even if you had 2. It does help your purse and it does help the environment. I don't think it's all or nothing. Even if you just had 2 or 3 just around the house, just to wear when you're using them around the house. But not only that, they look so cool. They're better than the look of paper nappies, as my customers call them. So I can see where a lot of people are coming from. It's just about breaking down those stigmas, really.
There are some companies, aren't there? I remember when we had our first lad, and we had some people in our NCT group who were desperately trying to get us to use reusable nappies. And there are some companies where they drive round and collect the nappies for you. That can't be environmentally friendly.
Yeah, no, that's like laundry companies that do that. They have their own sack of nappies and then they drop them off and pick them up. So it depends, each to their own, really, but I think if, for example, when your baby's born, if you had to buy your nappies outright and you had to hand over £1,000 for 7,000 nappies, disposable nappies, or you had to hand over £200 for gorgeous fluffy nappies with a guarantee that you could fit them into your life, I think there'd be a bit more, I might try them.
Eve, thank you very much. I'd never go, ooh, about a nappy, but I take your point. Eve Bell from Babandoo, thank you very much. And St Albans mum, Chrissy. Well, what do you think? 08459 455 555. Excellent stuff, the Beach Boys. 08459 455 555 is the phone number. Let's get the travel news now, shall we, with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Starting to look fairly busy now on the M25 anti-clockwise. It's heavy around junction 25 at the A10 for Enfield, and heavy again between 21 at the M1 and 19 at Watford. Speed there down to around 20 miles an hour, and also very heavy again between 17 at Maple Cross and 16 at the M40. Now heading south on the A1 at the Barnet bypass, it is still queuing at the moment between Stirling Corner and the Watford bypass. Usual delays there, and also heavy on the A405 North Orbital Road, just approaching the M25 junction 21A roundabout. Trains and tubes are still looking good at the moment. No problems to update you with there. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Sophie, thank you very much indeed. Don't forget you can give us a call at any point during this show about any of the things we're talking about. 08459 455 555. Coming up in the next hour, an MP has concerns about local hospitals. What do you think? Are you happy with the hospitals and Beds, Hearts and Bucks, or are you a little bit worried? We'll talk more after the news with Catherine Boyle.
Getting Beds, Hearts and Bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. The headlines: Wickham MP raises hospital concerns, protesters step up airport noise campaign, and the pub helping police with their inquiries.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The MP for Wickham is set to raise serious concerns about the standards of care in Buckinghamshire's hospitals later. Conservative Steve Baker will call for greater accountability and transparency when he addresses the Commons. Mr Baker told Iain Lee he's speaking out in light of the recent Francis report.
As a result of that report into the Mid-Staffs Hospital, The medical director of the NHS Commissioning Board is going to be investigating our health services in Buckinghamshire. Unfortunately, they've had high mortality. That's a higher number of deaths than expected for a couple of years. So Sir Bruce is going to be looking into whether there are any sustained failings.
The Argentinian Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio will celebrate his first Mass as Pope today as he assumes leadership of Roman Catholics across the world. From Rome, our correspondent James Robbins reports.
Pope Francis wakes this morning to a life utterly changed by the choice of the conclave. But it will be some of the first choices he now makes which will suggest the direction he hopes to set for the Church. The new pontiff must appoint the most senior staff who serve him at the Vatican. That offers the opportunity to reform a bureaucracy tainted by scandal. Pope Francis will return to the Sistine Chapel this afternoon, scene of his election, to celebrate Mass with the cardinals. On Sunday, as Pope and Bishop of Rome, Francis will deliver a message to the faithful in St. Peter's Square, ahead of his formal installation Mass on Tuesday.
Campaigners are set to protest later outside Luton Town Hall against plans for increased numbers of night flights from Luton Airport. The airport wants to double the number of passengers it can process from 9 to 18 million a year. New figures show the number of part-time students enrolling at universities in England last autumn fell by more than a quarter compared with the year before. The Higher Education Funding Council for England, which published the findings, suggests some may have been put off by the rise in tuition fees. A Hertfordshire landlord is helping police with their inquiries by flashing up images of suspected criminals on his pub's TV. Police are hoping the initiative at the Red Lion in Stansted Abbots could be rolled out across the county. Our reporter Iain Duncan asked punters whether it would put them off their pints.
I wouldn't have any friends who are involved with the police, to be honest, so I wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
I suppose I'm not really expecting to see anyone I know there, so it shouldn't make me uncomfortable. It's the same as watching Crime Watch, isn't it? So, you just don't want to scream and point and go, I can't believe he did that.
And would you be surprised if you suddenly saw a friend up there?
I can't comment.
In sport, Andy Murray will play Juan Martín del Potro in the quarter-finals of the Indian Wells Masters Tennis after he beat Carlos Berlocq in straight sets 7-6, 6-4. During their match, Berlocq complained to the chair umpire that Murray was taking too long between points. Murray responded by complaining about his opponent's grunting. The weather: hail, sleet or snow and a top temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, that's 39 Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC Three Counties Radio, first for news.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. How happy are you with the hospitals and beds, hearts and bucks? One local MP is concerned and is raising his concerns in the House of Commons later on today. A local pub will be advertising wanted people on a huge screen in their pub. How would you feel about that? And there's a new pope. I don't know if you heard the news. Why is the pope always so old? You can go to facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can send me a cheeky text if you want. 81333. Start your text 3CR. And as always, do put your name on it, please. Or, look, the entire switchboard is free. Why don't you give me a call now? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Also, miserable tennis player Andy Murray has been moaning again about his opponents. This time, the grunts are too loud. So, two things. I want to hear your tennis grunts, please. And also, what puts you off at work? I mean, if you're a millionaire tennis player and the worst thing that happens is someone going, oh! Oh! Then, you got life quite easy. What puts you off at work? Maybe it's an irritating person you sit next to who eats their food all the time. Maybe it's Justin Dealey. Oh, did I just give out what irritates me at work? I can only apologise, sorry. 08459 455 555. A Buckinghamshire MP will raise in the House of Commons today his concerns about Bucks NHS. He's calling for greater accountability and transparency in the NHS and will speak about 2 cases of deaths in their care, one at Stoke Mandeville and the other at Wickham Hospital. Well, earlier this morning, Steve Baker, MP for Wickham, said there has been a high number of deaths in Buckinghamshire for the last couple of years.
Now, this is a good opportunity for hospitals locally to reassure the public because we've had a number of problems. You asked which specifically. Well, one is Edward Maitland. Now, Mr. Maitland was a frail man, unable to eat solid foods, and he died after he ate Weetabix in Wickham Hospital. His son, a paramedic, had given warning that he couldn't eat solid foods. He even provided his liquid food. but after a communication breakdown, he ended up eating solid food and he died.
Well, Julie Smith joins me now. Her mum was discharged from Stoke Mandeville Hospital with dementia in the middle of the night, wearing just her hospital gown. Morning, Julie.
Good morning.
How old was your mum when this happened to her?
She's 85.
And so, tell me what happened.
Well, she was admitted on the late evening of the 12th of January with breathing problems after sort of doing a medical over her. At 2 o'clock in the morning, they decided to discharge her without calling me, and they put her in a taxi and sent her home. The taxi driver couldn't find where she lived, so I was called and asked whereabouts it was, because Mum was confused because she's got dementia, and I directed them to where they were. I paid them over the phone with a credit card, and the taxi driver assured me that she was indoors. But at 6 o'clock, I've later found out that she actually was sitting in the lobby. The taxi driver had just dumped her in the lobby, in the hospital gown, with no coat, nothing. And she was obviously freezing cold. So they took her in, the neighbours, and got her warm, and obviously I then contacted Stoke Mandeville to find out what was going on, because she went in clothes and she came out without any.
I don't know Mum's name, Julie. Sorry, what's her name?
Her name's Phyllis Collins.
So Phyllis, and does she live? She lives in a care home, does she?
No, she lives in sheltered accommodation.
Okay. What did you think when you got the phone call saying, got your mum in the back of a cab, we don't know where she lives, can you tell us? What was your first reaction?
Well, firstly, it was like I was annoyed with... Well, actually, I had phoned Stoke Mandeville because I hadn't heard what was going on. I had phoned Stoke Mandeville, gave them my details, said, do you want me to come over? Because I'm like 20 miles away. And they said, no, we've obviously got to do all the medical checks. So at 3 o'clock, I hadn't heard anything. So I phoned them up and said, can you tell me what's happening with Phyllis Collins? And, yes, she's been discharged. And I said, no, you can't have done. How did she get home? Oh, we put her in a taxi. And it is on CCTV that she was there in the waiting room waiting for a taxi to come and fetch her. So I was absolutely, obviously fuming to think that my mum had been discharged without the hospital contacting me to let me know what was going on with her. I was waiting to see whether she was being admitted and nothing. So I'm sat here like a lemon, if you like, waiting to sort of hear something, and nothing. And so I rang them up. I made a complaint, and at the moment the complaint is, under investigation.
I'm trying to think how I would feel if I found out my mum had been kind of discharged like that. I'd be furious.
Well, I was, because as I say, it wasn't as if they didn't know that I had contacted them, giving the reception my details, and that would you please call me, because Mum doesn't know what tablets she takes and what illnesses she's had in the past couple of years that might be affecting the dementia and things like that. And so they had no excuse whatsoever not to contact me and say, well, we want to discharge her. Then I could have made arrangements to obviously get her home safely and back into her flat. I don't drive, as I say, so it would have been like wake my husband up, or I would have got a taxi over there to pick her up and take her home, one or the other. I mean, she was discharged from hospital again last week. She was admitted on Wednesday of last week at Stoke Mandeville again, and they discharged her again at 10:30 at night.
They did it again?
Yeah, they've done it again, yeah.
And what did you say to them then?
Well, luckily, my son, who is in the ambulance service, he was on his way home to Aylesbury, and he thought, well, I'll call over and just see how Nan's getting on. And they said, oh, good, we're glad you've turned up. She can go home. There's nothing wrong with her. But the doctors wanted her in a place of safety because she seemed to have lost the plot a little bit on her dementia, wasn't quite safe to be on her own. So my son had to drive all the way back from Stoke Mandeville to Woodland Green to then go home to Aylesbury at 10:30 at night.
Julie, do you think that Stoke Mandeville Hospital is struggling to cope?
Yes, definitely. I think since Wickham has been closed, They've closed down every single service virtually, and there's nowhere for the elderly in High Wycombe. So they're being. I spoke to one of the sisters because Mum hasn't got a bed table to eat her food off of. She has to eat off of her lap. And I asked one of the sisters and the nurses, and they said, oh, well, we're a 21-bed unit, and we've got 22 beds on the go at the moment, so we haven't got a table for her. Which, again, I think is poor dues. She's 85, she's got dementia, and she's given her dinner to eat on her lap. You know, so they are obviously struggling.
What do you think could be changed, Julie, to make things run a bit smoother and to stop this happening again?
You know, I just think with a town the size of Wycombe, with the amount of people we've got, or elderly people we've got, I think we should have an elderly unit at Wycombe. There's all those empty beds, there's all those empty wards. I'm sure they could find staff and things to open an elderly unit, because it's a long way. Again, my mum doesn't understand why I can't get over to see her every day, because she doesn't understand that she's in Stoke Mandeville, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of other old people with, you know, that are in that position. I mean, surely we can have an elderly unit here in High Wycombe. I mean, we're having to find Mum a home now because she's not safe to be left alone. And you just think, it's a shame. When you see her, she's just so sad.
Mm. And, how is she doing now? Is she deteriorating?
Medically, that she's okay. It is the dementia that has kicked in big time at the moment, and I mean, even to the point yesterday, we felt that they'd possibly drugged her because she was very sleepy, very submissive, whereas over the last few days she's been quite dominant. I mean, they were going to discharge her again on Friday after she'd been admitted, but we had to ring her GP and get them to talk to the hospital and say, no, you cannot discharge this lady. She needs to be held for her own safety. So at the moment, yes, she's very low, but we're going to look at a home today that we've been advised about, and we're going to see, and if it's good, we'll get her out of there, because the rooms are so drab and boring. There's no view. There's nothing to stimulate her, you know, and this is what elderly people need when they've got dementia, is something to stimulate them. The nurses are far too busy to stop and chat, which is what she wants. Mm. She wants somebody to talk to, and they can't. They haven't got the time. If you've got 21 elderly people with dementia, they are struggling over there. They really are.
Julie, I really appreciate your time. It's Julie Smith talking about her mum, Phyllis, and their experiences of Stoke Mandeville Hospital. Julie, they're saying that Stoke Mandeville is struggling to cope. Well, what do you think? Are you happy with your hospitals in Beds, Herts and Bucks? 08459 455 555. We did speak to Bucks NHS. They've refused to come on the show this morning, but Anne Eden, Chief Executive of Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust, told us we strive to offer safe and excellent care to the 500,000 plus patients we see every year, and are pleased that for the vast majority we do just that. I know we don't always get it right for patients and their families, however, and for that I apologise. Clearly it's not good enough, and we must ensure that we learn lessons and take actions to stop these isolated incidents from happening again. Well, what do you think? Are we being a little bit unfair? Have you had excellent service in, Stoke Mandeville or any of the hospitals and Beds, Herts and Bucks, or have you got a story similar to Julie's, where people were dismissed, not given the basic respect, I think, is the thing that's lacking in the story there. 85-year-old woman with dementia being forced to eat her supper off her lap? That's just a tiny thing. It's disrespectful, isn't it? 08459 455 555. I'd like to hear your stories around that. You can also go to facebook.com/BBC3CR. It's coming up to 7:15. Let's get the travel news now with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
No major changes out there at the moment. Anti-clockwise on the M25, still heavy around junction 25 at the A10 for Enfield. Also slow as well between 21 at the M1 and 19 at Watford. Again, still slow where you'd expect, between 17 at Maple Cross and 16 at the M40. And heading south on the Barnet Bypass, also queuing between Stirling Corner and Mill Hill Circus. And again, very slow as well on the A405 at North Orbital Road, just approaching the M25 junction 21A roundabout. Everything else not looking too bad at all at the moment. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. Morning, it's 7:15. It's Thursday, the 14th of March. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines this morning on BBC Three Counties Radio. The MP for Wickham is set to raise serious concerns about standards of care in Buckinghamshire's hospitals later on today. The Argentinian Cardinal Jorge Maria Bergoglio will celebrate his first... It's close enough. Will celebrate his first Mass as Pope today as he assumes the leadership of Roman Catholics across the world. In sport, Oscar Whiskey and Rev de Civiola are among the favourites for the World Hurdle on day 3. Oh, they're horses. They're horses. OK, right. The Cheltenham Festival. I think Oscar Whiskey, these footballers, they do get silly names, don't they? The weather today for Beds, Herts and Bucks. Hail, sleet or snow and a top temperature of 4 degrees. Coming up, imagine having a pint in your local when suddenly a photo of one of your mates flashes up on the big screen being labelled as wanted by the police. Well, if you're visiting a certain pub in Hertfordshire, that could be happening. We'll find out more before 7:30.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Tackling your consumer problems.
On BBC Three Counties Radio.
My son took it back to the garage. The mechanic says, yeah, I know what it is. So they took it in, done what they had to do, and the car was still the same, still doing the same thing.
The JVS Show.
Fighting for your rights.
The long and short of it is, he agreed that he would replace the car.
If you have a consumer problem,
we can do the same for you.
I'd like to thank you and your team for everything you've done. We wouldn't have got where we got without you.
It's a pleasure. I'm going to call that a result. Any other problems, you know where I am, Stuart.
The JVS Show.
Fighting for your rights.
Weekday mornings from 9 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
You can give me a call as well, 08459 455 555. I'm keen to fight. Andy Murray has complained, OK, the millionaire tennis player Andy Murray has complained that his opponent's grunts have annoy him so much and put him off at work. So I'm asking you this morning, what annoys you at work? I tell you what annoys me at work is quite often when I sit down at we all hot desk, which is one of those lazy, made-up terms that means no one's got a desk, so you share them with everyone else. And when I sit down at a computer and someone hasn't logged out of the computer, it really narks me. It really annoys me. Just log out of the computer, because it takes me... Then I've got to switch it off and switch it back on again. It takes me about 3.5 minutes. 3.5 minutes when I could be looking at eBay and 3.5 minutes when I could be researching for this show. What annoys you at work? What annoys you at work, Stephen in Bedford?
Oh, fools who can't get up out of bed early enough, can't take a few more minutes of their time to clear their windscreens. So they just think they'll drive along looking for a little letterbox.
Oh, man alive. Don't they realise it's dangerous?
No, because they're a bit stupid, I think. They've got to be.
All it takes is you get an ice scraper for £3 from the garage. Don't buy the £1 ones, they don't work. You want £3 or £4 on an ice scraper. It takes you, a whole, 45 seconds or something?
Oh, no, that's a lot of time, that, isn't it?
Yeah, time is money. And you see it a lot. You just see people driving, you're right, with a little letterbox that they're looking through. Yeah. Going, this will be all right.
Yeah.
Stephen, what do you do then?
I'm a milkman.
Oh, you're Stephen the milkman, of course. Well, listen, Stephen, we've got you on the air, and it would be churlish of me not to ask. Can you do a tennis grunt?
Tennis grunt, I suppose I could do.
Stephen,
good enough?
That was perfect. It was reluctant, and that made it even that tied in with the Andy Murray theme, I think. Stephen, thank you very much. Like a good tennis grunt. I like it when the ladies. Steffi Graf was a great grunter. Some of her grunts were world-class grunts. 08459 455 555 is the phone number. Now, imagine the scene. You're having a pint in your local, you look up, and there's a photo of someone you know on the screen, and underneath a sign saying, the police want to talk to this person regarding a crime. Well, that could happen right here in the Three Counties, starting with the Red Lion pub in Stansted Abbots. Well, the landlord there is Mas Hosseini. Good morning, Mas.
Good morning.
So you've got the screens in there. What are on the screens at the moment?
At the screens at the moment, you got general advertising for the pub, what's going on, and various other event that's taking place.
So you got on there at the moment, it might say special deal on burgers, get some free potato wedges with your burgers, we've got Elvis night coming up, that kind of stuff.
That's right, exactly.
But you're going to include wanted criminals on there.
Yeah, this is only to help the actual community to just prevent crime and to make it a better place to live. We just got a few adverts at the moment. There is one there, somebody who's been wanted by taking stuff from the local co-ops.
Yeah.
And then we also got adverts to how to secure vehicles and keep it safe, and various other information to do with safety.
Whose idea was this, Mass? Was this yours or the Hertfordshire Police?
That was Hertfordshire Police. PC Dean Watson. He was the one who instigated it and who started it.
So what happened? He just turned up one day and said, "Can I speak to the landlord?" "All right, sir, I've got an idea."
He's our local beat officer. He popped in for a chat because we were having a meeting here one day to do with speed awareness. We used there's one of the roads just adjacent to the pub has got schools and various other things.
Yeah.
And they just were having a meeting, and he saw the TV, and he thought, hey, it would be nice to advertise or let people know of what's going on within the community, and hence we using that to help the police and make a better place for everybody to live.
How long has this scheme been running for so far, Mass?
This has been running for the past 3-4 weeks.
Okay, so it's still early days. Do you know if any of those criminals have been caught as a result of your pub?
No, not as yet.
Oh, okay.
No idea.
But it could happen. And what do the regulars say?
They're all for it. I don't think anybody got any objection, because all the regulars who come here are quite decent people, honest, hard-working, people, and they have no objection to it.
All right, Mass, imagine this, right? You're behind the bar, you're pulling a few pints, and you're doing that little tap thing you've got that does Coke and Pepsi and lemonade and all that. So you're doing the drinks, right? And you just look up at the screen, and you see the face of the fella that you're serving.
Yeah.
What would you do, Mass?
Simply give him a drink for free and keep him here till the police get here.
You'd give him a free drink?
I'm joking.
No.
I have no idea. I don't think it would happen. I think if he knows his face is up here, if somebody has told him, I don't think he would show his face here in the first place.
And Mass, what's interesting, years since I've been in a pub, what I'm getting from you is that this pub is not just a boozer, that it's quite important in the local community. You're advertising crooks, you're talking about speed awareness.
Yes.
Why is that? Why have you decided to make your pub so important to the community?
Well, the pub is a part of the community. Without the pub, people don't get to meet each other, they don't get to see what's going on, they don't get to have a social life as such. It has always been that. I suppose this is what the pub is all about, which recently is people, it is slowly going away from that.
Mass, listen, I appreciate your time. It's Mass Hosseini. He's the landlord at the Red Line pub in Stansted Abbot. So we can talk now to Chief Inspector Jerry MacDonald from Hertfordshire Police. Good morning, Chief Inspector.
Morning, Ian.
Who exactly are you? What are you aiming to do with this initiative?
Send a very clear message out to people that crime will not be tolerated in East Hart.
How does it work? Who decides what crooks get? Are they all local crooks?
The crimes will be based around what people that are wanted locally, so it's a very localised issue. So, say for instance, if somebody's wanted in Stansted Abbot, you'll expect to see their photographs, or I'll expect to see their photographs in the local pub, or local co-op, or local petrol station. It's a way of pushing crime down. East Hart has seen a massive reduction, about 15% reduction in crime, and it's because of the number of initiatives we have, and also working very closely with the community.
So hang on, you're saying because of this and other initiatives you've got going on, you've seen a 15% reduction in crime?
Yes.
Well, that's incredible. What other schemes have you got then that are contributing towards this?
A variety of things. It all came out. You probably remember around Christmas time we had the missing man in East Hart, Mr. Gwyn Morris.
Yes, I do remember that. Yes.
We had great relations with the community then, and we then took the learning from that, and from the learning from that missing person and how we dealt with the community and how we dealt with the whole scenario, we're rolling out a number of schemes. They'll come through one by one. But it's seen us engage with people, talk to people, listen to what people want us to do, and push crime down.
Well, a 15% reduction, I think, would everyone would applaud that. Have you had any phone calls yet from people in the pub who said, "Oh, I'm just watching this screen, and that's my brother up there"?
Not yet, but it's one local pub at the moment. But I expect to roll this out across all the towns and villages that I cover in East Tars, a third of the county area-wise. So I expect it'll soon be, the way forward.
Well, Chief Inspector Jerry MacDonald from Hertfordshire Police, thank you very much. It sounds like a good scheme. If they're doing that and other bits and pieces, and they've got the crime down by 15%, you can't knock it. And to be honest, it might get me back into pubs again. Yeah, it might do. Going to see some criminals on the telly. I would like that. I do like watching Crime Watch. I've watched it for 20 years, 25 years. On the hope that I would see someone I know. Never have done. Very frustrating.
This is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Andy Murray, the miserablest tennis player, is annoyed that his opponent in the last game was doing lots of grunts, lots of grunting. Oh, for goodness sakes, man up, Murray. It's what it's all about. The modern game is all about the grunting. And speaking of grunting, the biggest grunter there is, Dealey.
Iain, good morning.
Was that your grunt? Because that was very camp.
Yes. So Andy Murray, not happy again? Not happy? He's always moaning, isn't he?
Sorry, why did you do a Nigerian accent then? What was that for?
I've been trying to perfect that all morning. Don't knock me. Don't bring me down.
The Scottish accent is one of the hardest. My 3-year-old boy can do it because Mrs. Goggins is Scottish on Postman Pat, and he can mimic her perfectly.
Yeah.
But the Scottish accent is very hard to do.
Yeah, judging by that, yes, it is. The only one I can probably do, the only word is probably Tesco. I can do Tesco, and that's about it. Sorry, Scots.
I'm going to Tesco to buy some wee tatties for my supper.
Oh, I reckon we should go to Scotland for the day and try this for real.
Listen, the challenge is out there. Can anybody phone in and do a decent Scottish? It's the hardest accent to do. Can anyone do a decent Scottish accent? But Dealey, can you do a grunt?
Of course I can do a grunt. Do you want to count me down for this? Because this is going to be Radio Gold. Sony, if you're listening, employees of Sony, this could be the moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the countdown to Justin Dealey's tennis grunt. 3, 2, 1.
There you go. How was that?
That was rubbish. Do it again. Oh, for goodness sake.
Hang on a second. I've got somebody with me here.
Oh.
Alex Smith. We're going to be talking to Alex later.
Yeah.
This is the lady from Stansted Abbots who had 7 instructors.
Oh, be careful. It's taken her 25 years, 150 lessons to pass her driving test.
Exactly. She's going to be talking to us a bit later about driving. Alex, can you score my grunt out of 10? I thought that was rather impressive, didn't you?
8.5 maybe.
Right, Justin, put the headphones on. Can she hear me?
She can now,
Okay,
yes.
right, here we go. This is mine.
Oh, no, about 6.
What are you talking about?
Hang on a second. Let's get Alex to do one. Alex, can you give me your best tennis grunt? Come on. Oh, that was manly. That was very manly.
Listen, Justin, Alex will speak to you a little bit later on. I'm not sure I want to speak to Alex now. My grunt was much better than Dealey's grunt. 08459 455 555. Tennis grunts. What irritates you at work? We will ask Justin later on what irritates him. And can anybody do a decent Scottish accent? It's the hardest accent to do. It really is. Let's get the travel news now with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Anti-clockwise on the M25, we have reports of expected one lane to be blocked, and very slow traffic following a broken down vehicle between 16 at the M40 and 15 at the M4. Congestion is back to 19 at Watford at the moment, really adding to the delays in the area already. And heading west on the A40, one lane is closed following a broken down vehicle, again just between the Swakeleys roundabout and the M40. And also getting reports in at the moment that the A600, that's Harrowden Road through Kempston, is closed following an accident. Local drivers are being recommended to avoid the area, and police have closed the road in both directions between Eastcots Road and the A5134 at Mile Road. Bring you more on that as and when it comes in. Everything else not looking too bad. A few usual delays on the A10 and the A1, but nothing that's going to hold you up for too long out there. Trains are looking good at the moment as well. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Sophie, give us a grunt.
I don't think I'm going to be able to.
Go on, try.
If I have no voice...
I will take full responsibility and I'll pay your salary for the rest of the day.
Ugh.
That was brilliant! That was brilliant, James Brown! Well, coming up, we know we're going to hear Catherine Boyle's grunt, but before, let's get the sport and the news from her.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 7:30. The headlines. The MP for Wickham is set to raise serious concerns about care in Buckinghamshire's hospitals later. Catholics around the world have been welcoming the election of the new Pope, and protesters will gather outside Luton Town Hall this lunchtime as part of their campaign against airport noise.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
In rugby, Bedford beat the Army by 43 points to 29 in last night's Mobs Memorial match at the Goldington Road site. The Blues, who fielded Saracens flankers Jacques Berger for one half and Andy Saul for the other, ran in 7 tries and landed 4 conversions. They led 26-0 in half-time, but then the Army hit back with 5 second-half tries and 2 conversions themselves. Earlier, the East Midlands beat the Army A-team 28-8. Jonathan Trott hit an unbeaten 121 in Nick Crompton made a century as England's cricketers reached 267 for 2 at stumps on day one of the second test against New Zealand in Wellington. Having won the toss, New Zealand opted to field, and Trott says England were pretty happy to bat first.
Alistair's probably quite glad that we batted now, so each team was probably going to bowl. It wasn't a bad toss to lose, and we had a look this morning, and when I walked past, and I said to Alistair, I wouldn't mind losing the toss and getting in on that. So it worked out well for us today, but we got to kick on tomorrow.
3 British teams are in Europa League last 16 action this evening. Tottenham take a 3-0 lead to Inter Milan. Newcastle play Anji with the tie level at 0-0 following the first leg in Russia. And Chelsea trail Steaua Bucharest 1-0 ahead of their game at Stamford Bridge. The Chelsea interim manager Rafa Benitez says he isn't concerned about the prospect of the tie being decided on penalties.
I think that the penalties, it depends more on sometimes the heart and not just to practice. We have enough players that they can take penalties, and we have confidence that they will not go there.
Finally, tennis. Andy Murray will play Juan Martín del Potro in the quarter-finals of the Indian Wells Masters tennis after beating Carlos Burlock in straight sets 7-6, 6-4. During their match, Burlock complained to the chair umpire that Murray was taking too long between points. So Murray responded by complaining about his opponent's grunting, which I'm not going to do. And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 8.
Hey.
No, because you clip me and then stick it in all over the shop.
What on earth are you talking about?
I don't like the way you use me.
Catherine, listen.
You make me do silly noises. I'm your monkey girl. I'm not having it.
Well, you're we call you monkey girl just because of the hairy back. Listen, I won't clip it. Let's hear your best grunt.
No.
Are you refusing an order from your superior? Yeah, we got it. Excellent.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee.
Sucker.
On BBC Three Counties Radio.
It's technically not bullying. Although imagine if we were doing that in an office scenario. Imagine we'd had that conversation in the office. Go on, Kath, do your grunting. I don't want to. Go on, do it. No, you're just going to tape it and play it back to everyone in the office. I won't. That would be a sackable offence, but we're on the radio. In fact, I think it's encouraged at the BBC, that kind of thing, isn't it? Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. This morning we are talking tennis grunts. We are talking about the hospitals in your area. But before that, big news. The Catholic Church has a new pope from Argentina. He's the first pope from South America and will be called Pope Francis I. Well, just after 6 o'clock yesterday evening, white smoke emerged from the Vatican. It was the moment when everyone knew the cardinals had made their choice. Well, this is our Europe correspondent, Duncan Crawford, describing that moment.
Well, the bells of St. Peter are ringing out and white smoke is billowing from the Sistine Chapel chimney. The crowds are shouting out in joy. People are jumping up and down because a new pope has been chosen, a successor to St. Peter the Apostle, a new spiritual leader for more than 1 billion Catholics around the world, a leader of the Church and its institutions, also a new leader of the Vatican, a sovereign state. This truly is a historic moment. At just after 7 o'clock local time, a successor to Pope Benedict XVI has been selected.
Well, we can join Duncan in Rome now. Duncan, it was an amazing spectacle, wasn't it?
It was incredible to see just tens of thousands of people crammed into St. Peter's Square. It had been pouring down with rain all day, so they were absolutely soaking wet, drenched. They had their umbrellas above their heads, and they saw the white smoke. They, cheered and they cried. And then they had this, interlude where we were waiting for the new Pope to come out onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica because he was choosing his name, he was being fitted in his papal garments. And then there was that moment, the curtains on the balcony parted and they announced his name in Latin, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the cardinal from Buenos Aires, and his new name, Pope Francis I, the first time there's been a pope from Latin America, the first pope who hasn't been European in over 1,000 years. And I think he really endeared himself to the crowds because he said, I want you to bless me before I bless you. And the crowd simply screamed at that point, particularly the Latin Americans who were extremely excitable. Here's some more reaction from people last night I was speaking to in St. Peter's Square.
It's more like spiritual. Everyone's happy and exhilarated. And let's see what's going to happen to the church.
I think it's a good step forward. There's a lot of Catholics in Latin America, so it's good representation.
I am a Mexican. For me, it's a great surprise because I never expect this kind of movement in the church.
It's just incredible. It's just so exciting. We ran here from the Spanish Steps as soon as we heard. So I think we made it here in 10 minutes on foot.
Has it all generally been a positive reaction, Duncan?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, the reaction from people here in Rome, at least, has just been one of massive enthusiasm. I was speaking to people last night who were telling me they heard the news that the white smoke had gone off, that the bells of St. Peter were ringing. They were in a restaurant about 10 or 15 minutes away, and they left their food and ran down the streets still eating their food. So, tremendous excitement about this appointment. He's 76 years old. He's something of a surprise choice because he hadn't been talked about really that much in the build-up to this. Most Vatican watchers here were saying it was probably going on a bit longer, this conclave, that certainly he wasn't the favourite. But, 40% of the world's Catholics, they live in Latin America, and numbers have been declining. So perhaps that's why he's been chosen.
Duncan, can I ask you a question that you may not know the answer to? Why is the Pope always so old? I mean, this guy's 76, the one that's going out is 78. They're always really, really old.
I think it's partly to do with how long it takes to work your way up the Catholic Church, to become a bishop, to become a cardinal. All these things take a long period of time with a lot of study of theology and what have you, working in the institutions of the church as well. So that's partly to do with it. Although, they could choose anyone. They don't have to choose such an old figure. There have been, younger popes in the past. Certainly centuries ago, there were popes in their 30s, in their 40s. It's just that, in modern times, since the 20th century, they've always been quite old.
Duncan, thank you very much indeed. That's Duncan Crawford, who's out in Rome. And whatever you think on the choosing of the Pope, it looked amazing last night. Some of the pictures from it and some of the footage, it looked incredible, didn't it? 08459 455 555.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, a local MP is concerned about the hospitals, the state of the hospitals in Bucks. Steve Baker, MP for Wickham, is going to be raising his concerns in the House of Commons later on today. And I've been asking for your stories about hospitals. Are you worried about the hospitals and beds, Herts and Bucks? Or do you think, well, actually, they've been cracking with me. They've done a superb job with my mum or my husband or with me, and I've got nothing but praise for them. I don't want this to be a complete knocking. I'm keen... I'm keen to kind of get the mood in the three counties this morning about hospitals. Well, Lynn's in Hertfordshire. Lynn, you've got a story about hospital. Don't mention the hospital name just yet,
no,
but tell us what happened.
Basically, a couple of years ago, I was really poorly, taken into my local hospital, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, chronic pancreatitis, chronic lung disease. Now, with type 1, obviously it's not food-related. You have to inject yourself. 5 months later, oops, sorry, you haven't got either of those things.
Oh.
So I've injected myself for 5 months with insulin.
So they'd misdiagnosed you?
On 3 conditions.
How did you feel? Did they explain how they misdiagnosed you, how they made such a big mistake?
No, because they don't come back to you. Just get the information via your doctor. At some point, I think he was checking into it. And I was obviously having regular blood tests and going to a diabetes clinic. And they said, you haven't got it.
Well, in some ways, it must have been a relief. But once that relief...
It was a relief, but it was really scary as well, because when you've got type 1 diabetes, they're always banging on about, oh, you must look after your feet and your legs, it's a high risk of amputation. So I spent months, every night I was in bed thinking, does my leg hurt? Oh, we'll have to have it amputated and get in a state.
Oh, Lynn.
And I also know two other people. I've got another story. I was found collapsed unconscious outside my house 3 months ago. Don't know what I'd gone out there for because I left the door open, didn't have any shoes on, probably calling the cat in. Paramedics were called by a neighbour. I was unconscious and collapsed.
Yeah.
I was taken to hospital. I was discharged at 4 a.m. in the morning. And when I was sitting waiting for the transport home, the paramedic that actually took me in walked past and said, what are you doing sitting there? I said, I'm going home. And he said, are you serious? He said, I told them you collapsed again and I've got a hard floor indoors.
Well, Lynn, listen, we have to end it there, but I appreciate you coming on and telling your stories. I don't want this to be a complete hospital bashing. If you've got good stories about the hospitals, let me know. Laura in Aylesbury has texted in. We were talking about Stoke Mandeville earlier on. I've always been very happy with Stoke Mandeville, gave birth to both my boys there and had care during both pregnancies there too. Recently had a lump on my neck investigated swiftly and was really happy with the service they provided. 08459 455 555. Andy Murray, the professional miserabilist tennis player, has been complaining about the grunting from opponent Carlos Berlocq as he reached the quarter-finals of the BNP Paribas Open. Well, according to the BBC's tennis correspondent, Jonathan Overend, Berlocq's super loud, double-edged grunt groan polluted a pleasant Californian evening. It annoyed Murray so much he shouted outrageous at one point. Well, in case you're wondering, this is a recording of one of his grunts from the tennis match that took place. You can see that would be quite off-putting. Well, Ben Oakley is a senior lecturer in sports studies at the Open University, based in Milton Keynes. Ben, this grunting, it kind of came into fashion, I seem to remember, in the 80s. Does it help you play tennis better?
No, I'm sitting here with a smile on my face. That was a great grunt I heard just then. I seem to remember it being more common in the women's game, actually, to start with. And I know of no study that says grunting is good.
What's the point of it then? Is there a psychology that it makes you hit stronger, or that it puts the other person off?
Well, I think what Andy Murray is getting at, that there was a bit of gamesmanship going on because he was being accused by the other guy of taking a bit too long between points, and then the volume suddenly got turned up on the grunting, apparently. I've been thinking about other sports where this could be, it could suddenly come out of the blue, and imagine if someone started grunting on the first tee of the golf course. That would be pretty off-putting, wouldn't it?
That would be good, yes. Or when they're taking a shot in snooker.
Yeah, that wouldn't work well. And what about rowing? Eight guys, rowing down the course, every time they take a stroke, they grunt. That wouldn't be too hot either.
It wouldn't be too good. But you're right, the women do it even more. I remember Steffi Graf being a world-class grunter. And of course, those two sisters, the Williams sisters, they can grunt for America, can't they?
Well, I think in the women's game, there's some women have got a reputation for it more than the others. I can't remember all the names, but it certainly must be off-putting. I play a bit of tennis myself, and I just would start laughing if I heard it.
You would do. If you're right. When you see it at Wimbledon or this tennis tournament that Murray's in, you kind of go, oh yeah, they're grunting. But if you're down your local tennis club and there's some old boy that starts doing it, you would think, oh come on now, you look ridiculous doing that.
Well,
are there anything in the rules, Ben? If someone is grunting too loudly, is the umpire allowed to step in and say, hey, turn it down?
I don't know. I mean, it's been around tennis for a while, so the umpires must have have a position on it, and they'd probably let it all go until it gets outrageous, I would think.
Ben, thank you very much. Ben Oakley, Senior Lecturer in Sports Studies at the Open University. I want to hear your grunts. This prompts two lines of conversation. I want to hear your grunts, please. Can we get some good grunting going? It does actually... I'm doing it. It does feel quite cathartic. And also, what annoys you at work? These grunts annoyed Andy Murray at work. What annoys you at work? 08459 455 555. I would imagine I'm annoying most of the people here at BBC Three Counties. Oh dear. Here's the travel news now with Sophie.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Heading it down the A600 at Harrowden Road in both directions in Bedford, it is closed following an accident between Eastcots Road and Mile Road at the A51-34. And westbound on the A40 as well, one lane closed following a broken down vehicle just between Swakeleys roundabout and the M40. Anti-clockwise on the M25, fairly start-stop as well between junction 19 at Watford, and 15 at the M4. Earlier reports of a broken down vehicle there between 16 and 15. Everything else on the road's not looking too bad. A few usual delays on the rest of the M25, particularly around junction 21. Also fairly slow on the Barnet bypass still, and the A10 through Cheshunt suffering with the usual delays just around Winston Churchill Way. Now, we do have replacement bus service running on London Midland services between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey, all following an earlier train fault, so do check before you travel this morning. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Morning at 7:46. It's Thursday the 14th of March. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. The MP for Wickham is welcoming the government's plans to ban gagging orders on NHS whistleblowers. Catholics around the world have been welcoming the election of the new Pope. 76-year-old Cardinal Jorge Mario Bergoglio will be known as Pope Francis. A little bit easier to say. In sport, Jonathan Trott hit an unbeaten 121 and Nick Compton made a century as England's cricketers reached 267 for 2 at stumps on day 1 of the second test against New Zealand in Wellington. Coming up, how long did it take you to learn to drive? Well, for one Hertfordshire woman, it was 25 years. Before 8 o'clock, she'll be going for a drive with our bad driving correspondent Justin Dealey. But before that, let's get the latest weather with Elizabeth Rossini.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hi, a very good morning to you. We've still got temperatures a good few degrees below freezing. There's going to be lots of windscreen scraping, I think, this morning, so allow just a little bit of extra time for that, I think, this morning. A few mist patches too, they'll lift and clear quite nicely into the morning, but a lovely crisp start to the day with plenty of good spells of sunshine around this morning. Bit of blue sky, it'll feel pleasantly warm in the sunshine, but we're still in the cold air, so in the shade, yep, it's still going to feel mighty chilly, but the winds are a touch lighter than they have been recently. Temperatures today between around 5 and 7 degrees Celsius, I think, in Berkhamsted, in St Albans, in Stevenage as well, Hitchin. We've got 6 degrees Celsius up there. That's 43 in Fahrenheit. Lots of sunny spells into the afternoon. Just watch out for 1 or 2 light showers in places. They won't be half as hefty though, half as frequent as they were yesterday. Just light in nature. Could turn a bit wintry over the higher ground at times. Now, as we head into this evening and overnight, we'll start to see a little bit more in the way of cloud, possibly an early frost, particularly for parts of Hertfordshire, I would say. And then heading down from the northwest, we've got a little system that's going to give us thicker cloud through the night, milder temperatures to start the day tomorrow on around sort of 1-2 degrees Celsius, a bit of a hike there, and some outbreaks of patchy rain into tomorrow as well. And that's going to continue for much of the rest of the day. A southwesterly breeze this time, so a much milder wind tomorrow. Temperatures up to around 8 degrees Celsius, that's 46 in Fahrenheit, so not bad at all. But we are going to see some outbreaks of patchy rain, and that rain is likely to turn heavier as we head into Friday evening, stalling until Saturday. So for much of the weekend, it is going to be really quite wet, but at least it'll be mild. It'll turn colder, though, into next week, Iain.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
BBC Introducing.
BBC Introducing is your chance to hear unsigned, undiscovered and under-the-radar music on BBC Three Counties Radio. We showcase the best emerging talent from across Beds, Herts and Bucks, with live sessions and exclusive recordings. And this Saturday, we're taking BBC Introducing to the Alban Arena to celebrate the launch of Music City, a festival about local music, local venues and local people. Tune in this Saturday night and discover music you never never knew existed. BBC Introducing, Saturday from 8 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning, this is Iain Lee. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. What annoys you at work? After Andy Murray, the professional miserablist, says the grunting of his opponent put him off. Well, David has emailed in. 3cr@bbc.co.uk. I tell you what narks me at work, Ian. Rude kids. It's a bit hard to get away from them. As a teacher, parents need to teach their kids manners, as it's severely lacking from many, and they are often ruder than their kids. Yeah, rude parents is worse than rude kids, definitely. Oh, those rude parents. No manners whatsoever. What annoys you at work? I'm almost scared to ask Justin Dilley the question, but we will do maybe before 8 if we have time. How long did it take you to learn to drive? It took me, I think you can learn when you're 17, can't you? I think I passed my test just after Freddie Mercury died. So he died in November. So it took me... No, just before he died. I passed it just before Freddie Mercury died. And I started learning in June on my birthday. So it took me June, July, August, September. It took me about 4 or 5 months. Well, it took one woman 25 years. She first got behind the wheel in 1988. Alex Smith from Stansted Abbots carried on and on and on. 7 instructors, over 150 lessons, but managed to pass her test first time. We can cross now to our dangerous driving correspondent, Justin Dilley, who has had 5 more tests than Alex, didn't you, Justin?
I did, yes. I had 6 tests a long time ago, but I did eventually pass, and of course I am a better driver than you.
Well,
we all know that.
Dilley, there are certificates in the BBC Three Counties office that would dispute that. But
fake ones, yes.
Let's not get into that. You're with Alex now. Where are you? What's going on?
Well, let's just put this into perspective, Ian. Back in 1988, when Alex first started driving, Luton Town beat Arsenal in the Littlewoods Cup at Wembley, and Yaz was topping the UK charts with The Only Way Is Up.
The only way is up, baby, for you and me now.
It was worth mentioning just to hear that. That was
wasn't
absolutely
it just
fabulous.
What happened to Yaz and the plastic population?
There is a question. Forget about Alex and the driving. What happened to Yaz? Yaz, if you're listening, what happened to you? So, a long time ago, Alex, I have been driving with you. I'm going to play that audio in just a second. But how relieved do you feel after all of these lessons to finally say, I've passed my driving test?
It's wonderful. It's miraculous to finally say that's off my chest. I've done it. It's finished. It's over. I need never take another lesson.
And can I just say, you look incredibly normal as well. I wasn't sure what to expect this morning, but you do look like a normal human being.
Thank you. So do you. Well, not at this time in the morning.
Yeah, it's very, very early. So, Ian,
She sounds normal, doesn't she? She does sound normal.
You know, when you think to yourself, 150 lessons, 7 instructors, 25 years, and she's finally got there. Now, a few minutes ago, Ian, I went out into the car with Alex. It was terrifying. This is what happened. So we're in the Toyota Yaris, got the indicators on, been going for a couple of minutes or so. I put my sick bag to the left-hand side. Alex, this seems pretty cool, actually. You seem okay.
Thank you. It's the first time I've driven like this with you sitting there, and it's very nerve-wracking, actually.
I mean, you were nervous anyway, weren't you, about driving? So having me here is probably making the situation even worse for you.
It is a little bit, but it's something I've got to get used to. I will be driving people around in the future, so I've just got to get used to it.
Am I going to be okay?
Well, cross your fingers. If you've got a lucky rabbit's foot or something, hang on to that very, very tightly.
I mean, are you a dreadful driver? Because on the evidence of what I've seen so far, you're not. Are you a dreadful driver, or did you have dreadful driving instructors?
I think I was very unlucky with the driving instructors. It was partly my nerves. It was partly my lack of confidence. But I had terrible instructors. A racist bigot was one of them, someone who broke both his knees, someone who took me straight into a brick wall.
Can you keep looking in that mirror, by the way?
Yes,
carry on.
Sorry, yes, I'm looking in all the mirrors and I'm aware of all the traffic around us. Don't worry, you're perfectly safe, I think, hopefully.
So you've got a Toyota Yaris. Any plans to go up market, get a big dirty sports car or anything like that?
Oh, good God, no. No. Anything that goes over 50 miles an hour is wasted on me.
Okay, here comes another junction. I'm just a little bit terrified. No, you've done it, okay. I mean, what would you say to anybody who says, I'm sorry, 150 lessons, all these years, you should not be on the road. You just shouldn't be on the road.
They may have a point, but on the other hand, 150 lessons would make me surely the safest driver on the road. After all, no one knows as much as I do. No one's been there, seen it, done it as often as I have. I've learnt at 7 o'clock in the morning, I've learnt at 7 o'clock in the night, I've learnt on quiet roads, busy roads, city centres, I've learnt in winter, I've learnt in summer. I have had professional lessons in every sort of environment. So surely I'm the safest driver out there.
You talk a good game. I'm going to turn this microphone off in just a second because the listeners can probably hear the fear in my voice. I suppose your message to anybody would be, look, never give up. It took me 150 lessons, but I did it in the end.
Exactly. Persevere. It will come right in the end. Everything comes to those who really, really want it.
You just indicated off and you did check your mirror and you've slowed down into second gear. You're making a real effort for me, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ian, I survived.
You're making a real effort for me, girl. I appreciate that.
You really are.
I'm keen to know about the driving instructor, not the bigot, although I would like to know about that, but the one that had no knees.
Yes, can you tell us more about this driving instructor that had no knees, if you don't mind?
Well, he asked me to book my test and then went away on a skiing holiday, fell over outside the off-licence in Switzerland and broke both his knees.
There you go. There's a story for you.
Listen, she does sound wonderful, and she sounds much more normal than we were expecting. We all had our ideas, and she, but she sounds great. But she had one instructor that made her drive into a wall. Alex, come on, you can't blame that on the instructor.
You can't blame the instructor for you driving into a wall. That's a poor excuse, isn't it? Come on.
Well, I was asking him how to stop. I didn't know where the brake was, and I was saying, "Where's the brake?" And he said, "You're fine, just carry on, you're fine." And eventually, I just went straight to a brick wall.
Oh, you were doing so well until that point. Your grandma had 13 driving tests, so bad driving runs in the family then?
Unfortunately so. And my brother didn't pass until he was in his late 30s either, so maybe it's just a family trait.
No, listen, I think we're being unfair on Alex. She made a good point there. She's had 150 lessons. She's only had one test. Dealey, you had 6 tests.
Yes.
She probably is a lot safer than any of us.
I have to say, before we came here today, we all had our ideas, as you mentioned, but when I got into the car, I thought Alex is, in actual fact, a very safe driver.
Good for her.
We love a challenge on this programme.
Yes.
Alex, let me put this to you. Do you think we can find anybody listening to this programme in Beds, Hearts and Bucks and beyond who has had more lessons than you? 150. Do you think we can find somebody?
Well, the gauntlet is down. I would like to meet them.
There you go, but do you think we are going to find them, yes or no?
No, definitely not.
Well, Ian, the challenge is out there.
It's
Can
out
we
there.
find somebody, 25 years, take that out of the equation, that's just ridiculous. But can we find anybody who's had more than 150 driving lessons before they pass their test for real?
08459 455 555. Justin, you knew this question was coming, and I want you to be honest and frank and mention names if you have to.
Okay.
Andy Murray, the miserablest tennis player, is angry that he was irritated at work, that his opponent was grunting a lot. What irritates you at work, Justin?
What irritates me is when the management have no idea about fashion, to be quite honest with you.
I wondered where you were going with that.
Yeah, just recently we've had all these new jackets that have made, they look dreadful. You must wear your jacket every single morning, Justin, because you need to go out and wear the jacket that doesn't fit you. That annoys me.
Don't hand your notice in on my show, please. I tell you what, you talk about fashion.
Yeah.
Justin, we had a meeting the other day, and Justin was chatting, and then suddenly I went, he was wearing a hoodie, and I went, Justin, have you got anything on underneath that hoodie? And you didn't. You can't just wear a hoodie with nothing underneath it.
Hang on a second. I'm wearing a shirt today. There's 2 or 3 buttons which are down. Alex, this is a good look, isn't it? It's a good look. Come on. You like it?
For you, it's a very good look.
Yes, thank you. There you go.
Justin Dealey. Well, that was Justin Dealey, and it was nice working with him at BBC Three Counties. And that's tomorrow we'll be discussing interesting ways to hand in your notice, because that's exactly what he just did. 08459 455 555. What irritates you at work? Justin being a little bit more honest there than I was expecting him to be. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. There will actually be words in the office later on. Give me a call, let me know. Give me a call, let me know what irritates you at work.
Your best grunt.
Oh, that was the grunting montage. I do apologise for that. Let's try this now. There we go. We'll play the grunts a bit later on. Here's the travel with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
In both directions on the A600, that's Harrowden Road through Bedford. It is still looking like it's closed at the moment following an accident between Eastcots Road and Mile Road. Now the A40 heading west at the moment through Uxbridge. One lane closed there following a broken down vehicle just in Swakeleys Road and the M40. Also eastbound on the A40 at the Western Avenue through Ruislip. It is queuing following an earlier accident just before West End Road at the Polish War Memorial. Congestion is back to the Denham roundabout at junction 1 of the M40. Anti-clockwise on the M25, still start-stop as well between 19 at Watford and 15 at the M4, and replacement bus service is running on London Midland between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey following a train fault. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Coming up later on in the show, night flights could be doubled at Luton Airport. We'll be speaking to Peter Lilly MP on his views on that, and also yours. Speak to you after the news and sport with Catherine Boyle.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. The headlines: Wickham MP backs government stance on whistleblowers, noise campaigners march on Luton Town Hall, and the pub helping police with their inquiries.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The MP for Wickham will call for greater transparency and accountability within the NHS in Buckinghamshire when he addresses the Commons later. Conservative Steve Baker is speaking ahead of an investigation by the medical director of the NHS Commissioning Board into high mortality rates at the county's hospitals. He also welcomed the government's plans to ban gagging orders on hospital whistleblowers.
We've got to get to a point where the NHS is transparent. All too often I have second-hand accounts of things that are problems. I can't do anything about them second-hand. So I just really welcome this opportunity the NHS has locally, through Sir Bruce's investigation, to properly reassure the public about the quality of service locally.
Catholics around the world have been welcoming the election of a new pope. 76-year-old Argentinian Jorge Mario Bergoglio has made history by becoming the first pope from the Americas and the first to be a Jesuit. The General Secretary of the Australian Bishops' Conference, Father Brian Lucas, said that while Pope Francis might be considered conservative, he would speak out for those most in need.
On the question, of course, of social policy, it seems that he will be much less conservative and seems to have a track record of being a person who's been able to stand up and speak for those who have no voice, those who are marginalised, and to decry the terrible disparity between rich and poor.
Figures from the Office for National Statistics suggest that Milton Keynes will see the country's biggest rise in the age of its population in the next 20 years. Gail Sanderson has the details.
By 2030, the number of over 65-year-olds in the area is expected to increase by more than 100%, 108.1 to be precise. The national average is 50%. The figures have been released as part of a House of Lords report into the country's ability to respond to the needs of an ageing population. It concludes the government is woefully unprepared to deal with the pressure it'll place on employment, pensions and healthcare.
Campaigners will protest outside Luton Town Hall this lunchtime in a bid to stop Luton Airport's plans to increase the number of night flights. The airport, which is owned by the Borough Council, wants to double the number of passengers it can process from 9 to 18 million a year. A Hertfordshire landlord is helping police with their inquiries by flashing up images of suspected criminals on his pub's television. Police are hoping the initiative at the Red Lion in Stansted Abbots could be rolled out across the county. Our reporter Iain Duncan asked punters whether it would put them off their pints.
I wouldn't have any friends who are involved with the police, to be honest, so I wouldn't have a problem with that at all.
I suppose I'm not really expecting to see anyone I know there, so it shouldn't make me uncomfortable. It's the same as watching Crime Watch, isn't it? So, you just don't want to scream and point and go, I can't believe he did that.
And would you be surprised if you suddenly saw a friend up there?
I can't comment.
The weather, not a laughing matter. Hail, sleet or snow in a top temperature of 4 degrees Celsius, that's 39 Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/Three Counties. BBC Three Counties Radio, first for news.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Here every weekday, 6 till 9 o'clock. And coming up in the last hour of the show, a Buckinghamshire MP will raise in the House of Commons today his concerns about Bucks NHS. What do you think of the hospitals in the three counties? Are you happy with them? Or have you got concerns and worries? I'm asking you to call in with your best tennis grunts. And Luton Airport will announce plans that it wants to double the amount of flights. What do you think? The protesters are furious, but on Facebook, lots of you are saying, what's the problem? If you want to discuss that and everything else, you can go to facebook.com/BBC3CR. There is a picture of some of the protesters, and you can join in the debate there. You can also text in 81333, starting your text 3CR. Or You can give me a phone call, 08459 now, 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A Buckinghamshire MP will raise in the House of Commons today his concerns about Bucks NHS. Steve Baker is the MP for Wickham and is calling for greater accountability and transparency in the NHS. Today he will speak about 2 cases of deaths in their care, one at Stoke Mandeville and the other at Wickham Hospital. Well, earlier on this show, he said there has been a high number of deaths in Buckinghamshire for the last couple of years.
Now, this is a good opportunity for hospitals locally to reassure the public because we've had a number of problems. You asked which specifically. Well, one is Edward Maitland. Now, Mr. Maitland was a frail man, unable to eat solid foods, and he died after he ate Weetabix in Wickham Hospital. His son, a paramedic, had given warning that he couldn't eat solid foods. He even provided his liquid food. But after a communication breakdown, he ended up eating solid food and he died.
Well, joining me now is Alvin Evans-Woodward. His wife Becky was turned away by Wickham Hospital while suffering heart palpitations. Morning, Alvin.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Just take us through, again, what happened to your wife the night she went to Wickham Hospital.
Well, we went to Wickham Hospital with palpitations of 188 beats a minute, expecting to go and see the cardiac unit. We arrived there and was told that it was closed and we weren't allowed in. So we were sent over to the MIU unit, and they sent us over, or they suggested we go to Stoke Mandeville Hospital and have a ECG done there and then get sent back to Wickham Hospital. We spent an hour waiting to get into the resus unit at the Wickham Hospital cardiac unit. And it was all because of policy and procedures.
So you're worried that your wife potentially could die?
Yeah, I mean, like I said to you last November, December time when I spoke to you on the radio, Becky was worried that somebody was going to die at that hospital because of the way that they'd taken their policy and procedures over nursing and care. And she didn't want to be a statistic. And, we said at the time that there's something really wrong with these hospitals and they need to be sort of accountable to their people that are paying their way. And it seems now, with everything that's going on, that a lot of these hospitals have skimped and slaved, put policy and procedures in place, put people on the, Liverpool pathway without people knowing. And if it's true in Wickham and Amersham that people have been left to die or not been cared, then the hospital need to be accountable to them families, because I nearly lost my wife that night.
Well, I just have to stress, of course, that the hospitals aren't here at the moment, and I think we should just talk about your story because the hospitals aren't here to defend themselves at the moment. But how is with your incident with your wife Becky? How did that leave you both feeling in terms of hospital care?
Absolutely disgusted. I mean, it came to the stage where Becky was just petrified that she never ever wanted to go back to Wickham Hospital. Now, considering Wickham Hospital is the cardiac and stroke receiving unit, that's pretty bad, because she's so afraid that she's going to go there and die that, she could die any day, and because of the way they treated us, she's that petrified to go back there. I mean, we're not stupid. We know that if it does happen and Becky does have a heart attack, that's where she'll go, or she'll go to the Harefield. We're not silly enough to say we're not going to go back there, but it's more stressful going to that hospital than it would be if they'd have treated us properly in the first place.
What would you like to see done, Alvin?
I'd like to see nurses being able to nurse, because that night it proved to us that the policy and procedures that are put in place are taking over the nurses' care and compassion. That the nurse that turned us away, you could see on her face the absolute horror that what she was watching before her. Somebody could die, and the only reason she couldn't let them in was because she'd get sacked, because it's a policy and procedure that she couldn't go against. They need to change the policy and procedure to let nurses and doctors have compassion and, I can't remember the other word, it's...
Well, it's just a bit of common sense as well.
Yeah, common sense. Some common sense to say, yes, they need help, stuff the policy and procedure, let's get them in.
Alvin, how's Becky doing now? Is she all right?
Well, we're still having investigations done by the Harefield Hospital. they're looking at doing an operation in a month or so to hopefully sort it out. I mean, but they're, like with anything to do with the heart, there is possibilities of things going wrong that we don't want to go wrong. And that's where we are, I mean... Well,
listen, best of luck to both of you. I'm sure, that they'll do everything they can to sort things out, and appreciate you coming on. That's Alvin Evans-Woodward, who was talking about his wife, Becky. Well, joining me now is Andrew Clark from the Bucks charity Buds, who have taken the step of compiling a dossier of evidence about risks to patient safety at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. Morning, Andrew.
Good morning.
Andrew, why did you decide to compile this dossier?
It was quite an exceptional step for us. It's not something we've done in the past. And the primary reason why we did it is that we were hearing from people at Stoke Mandeville, staff and patients and visitors, that they had concerns about patient safety which they felt were not being dealt with adequately through the internal channels. And we were also aware that quite a large number of patients, in the same way that Alvin has come on your programme today and talked about his concerns, that takes quite a lot of courage, it takes quite a lot of determination. A lot of people were worried about doing that, or they didn't want to put their heads above the parapet, and a fair few people are worried that if they complain about the NHS, it'll somehow have an impact on their NHS treatment in the future. So we decided to give people an alternative way of giving feedback about the hospital. I think it's important to say we're not setting ourselves up as judge and jury on the hospital. We're simply collecting information from members of the public, from staff, from anyone who wants to give an opinion and has any evidence about patient safety at Stoke Mandeville.
What sort of complaints have you been getting, Andrew?
It's been a mixture. We've had a couple of, I suppose, what you call historic cases, talking about things that have happened in the past, but the vast majority of them have been things that have happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and some very, very shocking incidents amongst them. Now, we obviously are compiling a dossier for the CQC, and you'll understand if I'm unable to go into detail at this stage, because it's for the CQC to decide what to do with the information.
Of course.
But some certainly we have been genuinely shocked by some of the messages that have come through to us.
Without going into specifics, and I of course appreciate why you can't. I mean, what kind of area are we talking? Potentially life-threatening mistakes?
I would say so. Yes, I would say so.
Okay.
I have to say again, we are only hearing one side of the story, and the story that is perceived by a patient can be quite different from the story that is being perceived by clinicians. So, as I say, we're not reaching any conclusion as to whether or not these are justified or not. What we do think is quite interesting is that an enormous means to get your comments back.
Andrew, we're losing you slightly. We'll just try and keep you for a bit longer. It's not just the patients that you've been speaking to either. You've had staff complaining, is that right?
Indeed. I wouldn't say that we've had any staff complaining. I think what we've had are staff who have legitimate and well-reasoned grounds for being concerned. That doesn't surprise us because we think the NHS staff are marvellous. That it is very hard to find an individual member of staff who is not committed and skilled in their jobs. It's a large organisation. But there are a lot of caring, compassionate staff to do the best for the patients, rather, I suspect, like the nurse, the admissions nurse that Alvin was talking about earlier on, that want to do the best for the patients but feel that they can't, or that they have concerns about the way that hospitals are being managed or funded or staffed. And they've used our initiative as a means to bring forward those concerns, which I think is only for the best.
Andrew, listen, we're going to leave you there because the line isn't great, but Andrew Clark, thank you very much indeed. Well, Jenny is in Milton Keynes. Morning, Jenny.
Good morning.
And we're trying to keep this as balanced as we can. You've got a good story about hospitals.
I have got a very good, in fact, two very, very good stories.
Go on there very quickly if you can.
I had 3 knee replacements, 2 hip replacements, and I was in Ward 21. They were very, very short-staffed, and I couldn't wish for better service.
What on earth is wrong with your knees and your hips that you keep getting them replaced, Jenny? What are you doing?
Osteoarthritis.
So you're not out river dancing or anything like that?
No, and the other one was, sadly, when I lost my husband last July, they knew he was going to be very ill. They really spoke to me, and they were so good to me after he died. They even sent the vicar to give him the last rites.
And what hospital was that, Jenny?
Milton Keynes.
Milton Keynes Hospital. So you are more than happy with the service that you've received, and you've got great confidence in your hospital.
They were very, very good. There's only 4 nurses on, and they were absolutely excellent.
Well, Jenny, I appreciate you coming and putting the other side of the story. I don't want this to be a one-sided attack. I'm keen to get your stories about the hospitals in the 3 counties. Are you happy with them? Like Jenny, she's, been through a lot. 3 knees and 2 hips. Oh, dear. And they were great. And when, sadly, her husband passed on, it would appear that they did a fantastic job at putting her at ease as much as they could. Or do you agree with Steve Baker MP for Wickham, who's concerned about the hospitals in Bucks? 08459 455 555. 8:15 exactly. Here's the travel news now with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC 3 Counties Radio.
Heading through Bedford in both directions on the A600 at Harrowden Road, it is closed following an accident between the Eastcots Road and the A5134 at Mile Road as well. Now heading west on the A40, 1 lane closed following a broken down vehicle between Swakeleys roundabouts and the M40 itself, and anti-clockwise on the M25, still looking very start-stop between junction 20 at Kings Langley and 15 at the M4 at the moment. Everything else not too bad. A few usual delays on the M25 at the moment. Elsewhere looking fairly busy just around the junction 16 at the M40 at the moment. Usual delays there, and a replacement bus service also running on London Midland between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey following an earlier train fault, so do check before you travel. Sophie Tyler, BBC 3 Counties Radio.
Thank you very much. Morning, it's 8:16. It's Thursday the 14th of March. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC 3 Counties Radio. The MP for Wickham will call for greater transparency and accountability within the NHS in Buckinghamshire when he addresses the Commons later. Pope Francis will celebrate his first Mass today as leader of the Roman Catholic Church and begin appointing senior staff at the Vatican. In sport, Jonathan Trott hit an unbeaten 121 and Nick Compton made a century as England's cricketers reached 267 for 2 at stumps on day 1 of the second test against New Zealand in Wellington. The weather today for Beds, Herts and Bucks: hail, sleet or snow, and a top temperature of 4 degrees. Coming up, campaigners will protest today outside Luton Town Hall against plans for increased numbers of night flights out of Luton Airport. We'll find out more before 8:30.
BBC 3 Counties Radio.
Every weekday from 3, Roberto Perrone with the best local news stories.
There's a sporting story emerging.
Paul Buckle has left Luton Town Football Club by mutual consent.
The owners of the Centre MK have withdrawn a part of an application regarding the Primark development.
Local talking points.
The Hertfordshire Police and Crime Commissioner, Mr David Lloyd, has a plan to get sponsorship for police cars.
The best local travel.
There's been another day of disruption on the Thameslink line today.
We were evacuating from the train and we had to go back to Ratchet, and now we're waiting for the bus.
Roberto Perrone, every weekday from 3 on BBC 3 Counties Radio.
What? What are you doing?
I'm grunting.
What are you doing? Well, can you stop that, please?
I'm grunting.
Why are you grunting?
Well, I'm Andy Murray, the miserablist, is complaining that his opponent grunts too much, and I'm just seeing. Do you find it off-putting if I
found that quite off-putting. Yes.
Start your thing.
What, my phone in?
Start your phone in, and we'll just. This is not the real trail for the show. We'll do it properly in a second. But do your.
Coming up on the big phone in this morning. I can't do it.
Is it off-putting?
It's very off-putting.
Okay, maybe he's got a point then. Can you give me a grunt? What does your grunt sound like? But it's very butch.
What?
Papa's got a brand new bag. It does sound like James Brown when you do. What we're also asking this morning, Jonathan, what irritates you at work? And I bet there's lots that irritates you.
Oh, yeah.
Justin Dealey is irritated by the new jackets he has to wear.
Really annoys me.
Yes.
If my desk that I sit at upstairs, if it's dirty, if there's any if anyone spilt coffee or juices on there, any bits of food in the keyboard drives me mad. I often have to desanitize the desk before I can do my work.
You know that I use your desk when you're on the air.
Is it you?
It is.
You filthy person. Sometimes I find lumps of sandwich in my keyboard.
Well, bits drop off. And the bits I can't get out and eat again, I leave.
That's disgusting. I've got a special high-pressure aerosol that blows it out.
Have you got an aerosol pump?
It's upstairs.
Okay. What's on your show this morning?
We're going to be talking about the new Pope. I've had tweets from people saying, I can't wait for you to tell Ian the Pope's new name.
Go on.
He's called Jorge Mario Bergoglio. Jorge Mario Bergoglio.
You're making sounds that are not the phonetic in any language in the world. You're just coughing up a big greenie.
That's his name, and he looks like a mixture of Jim Bowen. He looks like Jim Bowen. And do you remember there was a Miami talk radio presenter called Neil Rogers?
I do, yes, of course.
He
yes,
looks like Neil Rogers as well.
He does look like both of those gentlemen.
He does, mixed into one.
It's exciting news.
It is. Well, on the big phone in this morning, I'm asking, does he sound like your kind of guy? Does this new Pope sound like your kind of guy?
Is that the question?
That's the question.
It's the Pope you're talking about.
Pope Francis will celebrate his first Mass today as leader of the Roman Catholic Church and begin appointing senior staff at the Vatican. At 76, he certainly should have wisdom on his side, and he's a man who's been happy to make his views on certain issues well known. Single mothers, gay marriage, vanity, the Falklands, the list goes on.
Well, we've lost the Falklands now, haven't we? Thanks for that.
From 9 this morning, I want to hear your views. Does the new Pope sound like your kind of guy? Do you think he's going to breathe fresh life into the Roman Catholic Church? Do you think he's going to breathe fresh life into the world? Or do you think he is a Pope that you can't identify with? Why are you laughing?
Because Catherine Boyle has just sent me a message saying, is the Pope your kind of guy? I can't read that out. She's a serious broadcaster, apparently.
What's wrong with it? Does the Pope sound like your kind of guy? We're going to discuss that at 9 this morning.
Brilliant question. Why don't they get like a funky Pope? They're always this guy's 76. The one that's going out is 78. Why don't they get a funky Pope? Like imagine a 42-year-old funky Pope. But that would be cool.
That's young, is it, in your eyes? You need a man with wisdom, don't you?
42-year-old man. I'm 39. I have much wisdom to impart,
but not as much as a 76-year-old.
Maybe more.
This man has lived.
Well, has he? Has he?
He has. He's lived a lot.
He lives in a flat on his own. He does his own cooking.
Well, he's experienced things.
What, putting a Findus in the microwave?
I'm quite sure they don't eat Findus in Argentina. From 9 this morning, does the new Pope sound like your kind of guy? It's the big phone-in.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
It really, I would have to say that's one of the best questions I've ever heard for the big... JVS at 9. Is the Pope your kind of guy? 08459 455 555 if you want to give him a call now, or you can send him an email, jvsshow@bbc.co.uk. Now, campaigners will protest today outside Luton Town Hall against plans for increased numbers of night flights out of Luton Airport. The airport wants to double the number of passengers it can process from 9 million to 18 million a year. But people living near the airport are unhappy. That could mean more noise and more night flights. Earlier, our reporter Justin met with some of the campaigners.
You get a flight, it wakes you up, what happens? Your sleep's disturbed, and the World Health Organisation has shown that causes serious health problems.
Is that why you're wearing your dressing gown this morning here and it's freezing cold?
We're wearing our dressing gowns to make the point that we want to protest, and we want people to come out and help us protest against this plan to double night flights.
So you're all going to be in dressing gowns today outside Luton Borough Council saying enough is enough, we can't take this anymore.
Some of us will be in dressing gowns worth coming to see. Come to Luton Town Hall at 12:30 today. You can wave a placard, and at the end of the protest we're going to pop our balloons just to make the point that we want this night flights thing brought under control. We're not completely anti-airport, we use the airport. What we need is planning controls put in place by Luton Borough Council as part of the process of determining this planning application. No more night flights! How do we get it? Planning control! And we're going to pop our balloons to make the point.
Well, Peter Lilly is the MP for Hitchin and Harpenden and is against the night flights. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Peter, you've called for an independent inquiry on Luton Airport's expansion plans. What are your main concerns?
Well, about the planning process, we have grave concerns because as things stand at present, it will be Luton Council's own planning committee who will make the decision when a planning application is put in. And, of course, Luton owns the airport and gets a bounty from each extra passenger that travels through it. So their views are going to be tainted in the eyes of the public. And I don't think we should proceed like that. We should have an independent body making the decision so that the decision is not only fair but seen to be fair.
The airport does say that expansion plans could bring an extra 5,000 jobs, and I would guess, I don't know, to do that they would need to increase the flights. Not everybody's ever going to be happy, are they?
No, and I thought the leader of the opposition, that's just, of those demonstrating, was very sensible. He said, we're not against all expansion. The point is to make that expansion compatible with a decent environment for everybody living around the airport. And one of the best things could be is if they made a promise to ban or radically reduce the number of night flights. Instead, the proposals that they've put forward indicate a doubling of the night flights. So, but there were hints that the airport operators wouldn't be unhappy if there was a ban on night flights, and they could go ahead with some expansion during the day.
Well, to put it into context, Peter, it's just under a doubling, isn't it? They say that a lot of the information is being quoted wrong. They say they don't want to double the flights between 10 and 12. It's 25 to 45 would be the increase.
Yes.
You're not buying that?
I'm still hoping that this is just a bargaining position, and at the end of the day we can end up with a ban or a near ban on night flights, which would, because they are the most disturbing and distressing kind of noise. Of course, if you live right under the flight path, day flights are also damaging. We want to see quieter planes and the rerouting away from built-up areas wherever that's possible.
Is it just a bit of NIMBYism, Peter? I tell you what, I'll ask, a couple of people have commented on the Facebook page. Drake says, more night flights, imagine the jobs and boosts to the economy. And Steve says, bring it on. They're a load of do-gooders, if you ask me. Is it NIMBYism?
No, and I've been very careful to say we shouldn't oppose all expansion. I was glad that the demonstrator took that point. It will create extra jobs, probably not as many as the airport authorities suggest, but they'll both be direct jobs, and it attracts business and industry, and that's good. One wants to see employment and prosperity in Luton, and one wants to see people enabled to travel. Travel's good, it broadens the mind. But one wants to make sure that the conditions imposed on expansion are such that it's made bearable for the people living near the airport.
Peter Lilly, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
The Security Minister has said that the Luton-based English Defence League's anti-Muslim speakers could encourage people into terrorism. James Brokenshire has said that the EDL is responsible for inflaming tensions and spreading hatred and prejudice within the communities. He joins me now. Very strong language, James. What evidence do you have that the EDL does this?
Well, good morning, Ian. We've been seeking to set out very clearly our assessment of the threat from terrorism, including far-right extremist terrorism. And a part of that is the radicalising narratives that terrorists can be involved in, who tend to be, from the far right, lone individuals rather than organised groups. But it is about some of the messaging that's being put out, very anti-Muslim messaging that seeks to divide communities. And I think the clear statement I wanted to underline is how the government fundamentally disagrees with those statements, and to underline the work that's taking place, some very good work in places like Luton, to seek to provide a more integrated society.
Do you really think that EDL followers could become terrorists?
Well, I think that there are individuals within the EDL that have very extremist views. And the point that I was trying to make was that sometimes that can gravitate further to more direct terrorism, using violence itself to advance a particular political aim. The EDL themselves they conduct their protests. Whilst I fundamentally disagree with their views, that they have the right to protest, and that those protests are policed, and so we deal with them more as a public order and an integration issue. But there can be individuals who go down a pathway that leads them to further radicalisation, to the ambition to be involved in some sort of terrorist act. And we are taking those threats very, very seriously, and it's why our counter-terrorism strategy embraces all forms of terrorism, including the potential threat from the far right.
They argue they're not a far-right organisation, but you say that they are.
Well, we look at the extremist language that those who are involved, some of those who are involved, seek to perpetuate, and it's only divisive. It divides communities. I've spoken to leaders from within Luton and other councils who underline the tensions and the challenges that poses. It's why a number of the local authorities, including Luton, have come together as a special group to seek to identify how best to deal with some of these issues, how to challenge some of this quite racist, anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim rhetoric that some members of the EDL seek to put forward. Of course, there may well be political issues of concern that are identified, but it's when it gets framed within that narrative that almost a Muslim can't be part of British society. That is where we do and will confront that very firmly and not allow that sense of extremism to be able to foster.
James Brokenshire, thank you very much for your time. Sorry to keep it brief, we have to move on. It's 8:30. Let's get the travel news now with Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Starting off on the A600, that's Harrowden Road. It looks like it has all been cleared now following the earlier accident. The road has been reopened, so it should be looking an awful lot easier in the area now. Heading west on the A40 through Uxbridge, though, 2 lanes are still closed. There's queuing traffic following a broken down vehicle between Swakeleys roundabout and the M40. Congestion is back to the A40, to the Western Avenue at the A437. Now heading north on the M1, 1 lane also blocked with queuing traffic following an accident. 3 cars involved there between the Newport Bagnall services and junction 15 and Northampton. Everything else not looking too bad. A little bit slow anti-clockwise on the M25 where you'd expect, but nothing that's going to hold you up for too long. A replacement bus service is running, however, on London Midland between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey, all following an earlier train fault. So do check before you travel. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Sophie.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning with the 8:30 headlines. I'm Catherine Boyle. The MP for Wickham will call for greater transparency and accountability within the NHS in Buckinghamshire when he addresses the Commons later. Pope Francis will celebrate his first Mass today as leader of the Roman Catholic Church and begin appointing senior staff at the Vatican. And figures from the Office of National Statistics suggest Milton Keynes will see the country's biggest rise in the age of its population within the next 20 years.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
In rugby, Bedford beat the Army by 43 points to 29 in last night's Mobs Memorial match at Goldington Road. The Blues, who fielded Saracens flankers Jacques Berger for one half and Andy Saul for the other, ran in 7 tries and landed 4 conversions. They led to 26-0 at half-time, but the Army hit back with 5 second half tries and 2 conversions themselves. Earlier, the East Midlands beat the Army A-team 28-8. Arsenal won 2-0 at Bayern Munich last night but went out in the last 16 stage on away goals as the tie finished 3-3 on aggregate. And in cricket, Jonathan Trott hit an unbeaten 121 as England reached 267 for 2 at stumps on day 1 of the second test against New Zealand. Trott says his performance in Wellington this morning was needed following his poor batting in the first test.
I'm always disappointed when I don't get in and get runs that on offer. If you get a good ball, you can't really be too upset about it. But I felt I pretty much got myself out in both innings, and it's important not to be too hard on yourself, but you can't be too soft and say, well, next innings I'll get runs. You got to, when you get the chance, you got to take it.
Andy Murray will play Juan Martín del Potro in the quarter-finals of the Indian Wells Masters Tennis after he beat Carlos Berlocq in straight sets 7-6, 6-4. During their match, Berlocq complained to the chair umpire that Murray was taking too long between points. Murray responded by complaining about his opponent's grunting.
When it's consistent, you can kind of get used to it, but when it's kind of coming from being silent to then extremely loud noise and it's carrying through and so you're hitting the ball, that's when it gets a bit too much.
And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 9.
You can do a Scottish accent.
I try.
No one can do a Scottish accent. Hardly the Scots can do them either.
My daughter can do one from Nina in the Neurons.
Oh.
She loves it.
An interesting use of the word inningses. Did you hear the cricketer?
Yeah.
Inningses.
He can say what he wants. No one understands it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Kath. Excellent stuff as always.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, this morning, the last 30 minutes of the show before JVS, we're going all over the shop. Lip reading, tennis grunts and the new Pope. It doesn't get any more varied than that, and some would say that's probably too varied as it is. Now, a lip-reading teacher who has completely lost all her funding is carrying on regardless. Louise Reed has been running one of the only lip-reading classes for 36 years. It's one of the only ones in Hertfordshire, and Louise joins me in the studio now. Morning, Louise.
Morning, Ian.
36 years. Why did you get into lip-reading and teaching it?
Well, I tell you something, it's very simple.
Yep.
I was ill for nearly 2 years in hospital, and it may sound soppy, but it's true. When you come out of hospital after being so ill and being better, you want to give something back. It sounds very soppy, but it's true.
Soppy's nice. It's good. We like soppy here. That's fine.
That's all there is to it, yes.
But so how did you... Did you discover you could do lip reading, that it came easily, or did you learn... Did someone teach you?
No. I became a teacher of the deaf.
Right.
I went to Manchester University, did a course in teaching of the deaf. I did ordinary teaching and then became a teacher of the deaf. And then I began teaching in a school for deaf children. It was a residential school in those days. Can you imagine 3 to 5 years residential? Awful.
Wow, yeah, incredible.
But of course, because the catchment area was so big, people had to come. They couldn't do that journey every day. They come in on a Sunday night, go home on a Friday night. And I had 8 little children between 3 and 5 in my care. And they came in very often with no language at all.
Incredible.
Because these were born deaf children. And so my job was to get them talking.
How do you teach children who've been born deaf to lip read?
Well, it wasn't just to lip read, it's to talk.
Right, OK,
yes.
right.
So you have to have an interesting face.
Yes.
I'm not saying my face.
Your face is fascinating.
Fascinating,
I
absolutely.
spotted that as soon as you came in.
Yes, it's all the spots and the extra. Yes. So what you need to do is to have something interesting. So you find what they're interested in, a car or a doll or whatever it is. You hold it. It's very difficult, this on radio.
I know.
Because they can't see.
No.
And I'm a visual person.
Yes.
However, you hold whatever it is they're interested in, a car, a doll, beside your face, and you say, this is a doll. And they look at you and they think, mad woman, I want the doll.
Yeah.
And you say, no, I won't
You can't
give the
have
doll.
it.
Absolutely
Yes.
true. And you say, it's a doll. It's a doll. And eventually they'll say, oh. And you say, yes. And you give it to them.
Fantastic.
Notice, no duh.
Yeah.
Because you can't see. Look. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm doing duh. They can't see duh. But there
she's
you are.
mouthing, but there is no duh.
It's like, look, this is what you are.
OK. I beg your pardon?
Precisely.
Right.
That says Three Counties Radio.
I'm going to say something.
Yeah, OK. Oh, dear. I know people do this to me.
You better get this right.
Say it again, sorry. You are the one on one of the what?
You're wearing a blue jumper.
I'm sorry.
She's not a lip reader.
I'm hopeless. It's as they always say, those who can't teach.
Is there a little bit of guesswork in it where you kind of have to fill in the blanks, the words that you might have missed?
Yes, of course it is. Anyway, I was going to say,
yes.
So I taught deaf children until I had children, roughly speaking, and then I started teaching adults who have gone deaf.
Right.
And that is an entirely different thing because they've got language.
Yeah.
When I was teaching children, they hadn't got any words.
So you were starting from scratch.
You realise you have to think in words.
Yeah.
And that was a different thing. But now I'm talking to adults. They've got all the language in their heads. It's a matter of recognising it. And, when people say, oh, I'm deaf, it doesn't mean to say they can't hear anything. Quite rare to be totally deaf, quite rare. But It's a terrible thing when people begin to go deaf. It's as if they're losing their personalities. The outgoing person, the jolly chap in the pub, life and soul of the party, he suddenly finds that he's saying something, and everyone looks at him and says, "For God's sake, we just said that." And you get to the point of thinking,
Not going to bother.
I better not. I'm going to make a fool of myself. People begin to withdraw, and they get sad. They lose what they were. The outgoing personality becomes a frightened personality, a sad personality, quite often.
So what you've been teaching is vital, but you've lost all your funding for this.
Yes.
How has this happened? What happened?
They don't love us anymore.
Oh, really? They don't care anymore?
No. Well, what happened was I first taught for the local education authority, and then they wanted to put up. That was free, and then they wanted to put up huge fees, and I said, that is iniquitous. It's like charging people for crutches, charging people for glasses, so they can see. I mean, iniquitous. And I was so angry, I resigned. So then I set up by myself.
I bet you can get very angry at times.
Oh, yes.
I can sense that. You're being very calm now, but I can feel that there's...
Absolutely right. Yeah. So then I set up by myself. Then the Workers' Education Association, WEA, took me over, took us over. And they did us for about 2 years, and then we lost their funding as well, and now we're on our own.
So how are you surviving?
Charm.
Really?
No. I have to charge fees because I need to pay the rent of the rooms where we meet. I need to pay insurance and advertising and me a bit as well. Fair dues.
Yes.
So what we do now, thank God, we've had such kind help from people. For example, Waitrose has helped us and various other people like that. Waitrose means that now people who come to the classes, if they can afford the fees, they pay them.
Right.
If they can't, they pay me pay us what they can, or they don't pay at all. And that is wonderful because that's quite honestly what I'm about, we're about.
Are Waitrose helping you with those little green discs?
Yes,
are you one of those?
Yes.
Oh, I've always wondered if those are actually, if there's any point to those at all, and there is. It's you.
Yes.
Oh, that's good that works.
Hitchin Waitrose gave us a large sum of money.
Well done, then.
People are coming and they're ringing me up, and they're saying, and I'm saying, don't worry. If you can't afford it, come anyway. The important thing is that people come and join the class, because it's not, of course, people do learn to lip read. I have to say they do.
Yes.
But there's also an awful lot of laughing.
Yes.
An awful lot of caring about each other, which may, again, sound soppy, but it's true.
Yep.
People make friends, and they're nice to each other, and you've no idea how much. Well, I've got a list here. You've seen it before.
Yes.
Your chum has seen it before.
Look at this.
We made a list of why people come to lip reading class, and that's what they said.
And these are all things like that. It's fun, confidence, ability to deal with situations. These are all things that make living easier.
Worthwhile.
You make it worthwhile, don't
Yes.
they? But just before we go, what do you want? Do you want funding from the government? Do you think you should get funding from the government?
We've got no money, have we? No one has any money. I think if people, we're a sort of unconventional charity. We have not registered as charities, but if people can give us money, and it's all very carefully looked after. It's all
you look very
above
sensible,
board,
yes.
absolutely
Yes.
true. But it means that we can welcome people. I know a woman who used to work in the garden, and when the postman came, she used to hide because she was afraid he might talk to her, and she wouldn't know what he said. Things like
Incredible.
that. It's all these little stories. People come together, and we laugh and we talk, and actually people learn to lip read as well. It's wonderful. It's so exciting.
If people are interested, they think they've got a family member or themselves that might want to get involved. Have you got a website or something that people can look at?
Well, I've got an email.
Yes.
Mrs. Bruin, like Bear, Bruin, Mrs. Bruin, at hotmail.com.
We'll put it on the Facebook page as well.
Absolutely.
So that people can have a
and
look.
I promise I will respond to everybody if I possibly can.
Louise, thank you so much for coming in. Absolutely fascinating.
Okay.
There we go. That's Louise Reid. 08459 455 555.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
We've been talking about hospitals this morning after a local MP is going to the House of Commons today to express his concerns about the hospitals in Bucks. Well, June has called in. June, don't mention the hospital name, but tell me your story.
Oh, good morning, Ian. Well, it will be 6 years in this... You'll have to excuse me, I'm a bit nervous on this one. In April, next month, it will be 6 years. What the situation is, my husband wasn't well for a few days before all this happened, but he wouldn't stay off work. He's one of those people. Anyway, on the Saturday, which was on I'll get it right, he was 54 on the Good Friday. And the day after, he was getting worse, so I said, right, I'm going to ring a doctor. So I rung an out-of-care agency number. I spoke to a doctor there and explained the situation to her, and she said, it's not life-threatening, it sounds like flu, just give him blah, 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 and he'll be okay. Not accepting what she was saying, and me looking at my husband in the state he was in, I had to go at it, and I said, no, I want a doctor out to have a look at my husband. She said, no, he's 54 and he's not entitled to have a home visit at 54. After a conflab between us, which I'm not going to go into, wasn't very nice, she rung me back and she said, if you get him down to this certain hospital for 5 o'clock, there will be a doctor that will have a look at him. I said, okay. I managed to ring a taxi, get my husband into the taxi, get him to the hospital at 4:50, booked my husband in, and then sat. I kept going over to the desk and talking to one of the nurses, explaining what my husband was like. My husband was bringing green stuff up. There was children sitting in the room, lots of children, because it was the Easter. They said the only thing they could do was give me a sick barrel. So I kept going over to the other side, accident side. We can't do anything. You've got to wait, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, cut the story shortly, Ian. It went on for 2 hours. My husband was called into the room, seen a doctor there. He told my husband to open his mouth. He put a stick on my husband's tongue. He said, oh, it's a viral infection. Can you find a chemist open and get these amoxil? Is he allergic to it? No, I don't want amoxil. I want my husband admitted. Look at the state of him. I know my husband. No, it's not life-threatening, all this bloody thing. My husband, being the kind, quiet person that he was, says, June, please, let's go home. Let's get the amoxil. We got into a taxi, drove all around most of Luton, found a chemist, got the amoxil, got home, gave him the amoxil. He went to have a lie down. He got up and he collapsed in front of me. That was a matter of an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right, I wasn't going to take any more instructions from my husband. I rung 3 9s. I got an ambulance out. We got Paul into hospital, straight into resuscitation. The doctor said to me, we're going to put a tube down your husband, incubate him.
June, I really hate to do this, but we're running out of time, so I'm really sorry to rush you along a little bit.
Yeah, what the situation was, I waited 2 hours. If the doctor had, got a thing into gear beforehand and hadn't waited all there, the doctor that didn't even take my husband's oxygen level or even put a stethoscope on my husband, just looked down his throat. Right, my husband went into intensive care, into a coma, and his organs died one after another. In 2 hours, they took me and my grandson in a room and says, your husband inevitably is going to die. And me and my grandson held on to my husband for 9 hours, gave him the last rites, and then I found out that, they're put into a coma, but they can still hear.
Yeah.
So not only did me and my grandson go through hell, watching every organ die, right, my husband knew he was dying, but couldn't even move. Because of these agency doctors, I never took them to court, and they just kept saying, "Oh, your husband had diabetes." He didn't. My doctor came with me. He didn't have diabetes. He was a very healthy man. 2 of these doctors had false diagnosis. One couldn't be caring to come out, and the other one couldn't even be caring to do what he should be doing, saving lives.
June, I'm really sorry to interrupt. We are out of time, but just finally, I'm really sorry to hear your story, and thank you very much for sharing it with us this morning. You blame the hospital for this?
No, not the Ellen.
Okay, well, listen, June, listen, I think we got the point of the story. Thank you very much for that. And just, of course, know the hospitals aren't here to put forward their side of the story. And as June was saying, that she doesn't blame the hospital, so that's okay. But thank you very much for coming on. Let's get the travel news now. Here's Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Northbound on the M1, one lane is still blocked and there's queuing traffic following an accident. 3 cars involved in Newport Pagnell services and junction 15 at Northampton. Now also on the A45, that's London Road, slightly out the area heading into Northampton this morning. It is very, very slow following an earlier accident. A motorbike involved there between junction 15 at the M1 and the Queen Eleanor's roundabout. Westbound on the A41 lane also blocked with queuing traffic following a broken down lorry between Swakely's roundabouts and the M40. Congestion is back to the Western Avenue at the moment. And on London Midland services, replacement bus is running between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey, so do check before you travel this morning. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. We'll do the headlines in a second, but before that... Oh, no, we won't. Let's get the weather, shall we, with Elizabeth Rossini.
Hello. Hi. Very good morning to you. It certainly is a very frosty start to the day, but we'll see some good spells of sunshine out there for the rest of the morning. A little bit cloudier into the afternoon, and top temperatures today between 5 and 7 degrees Celsius. That's 45 in Fahrenheit. Just watch out for the odd light shower at times. Could be wintry over the high ground. Not as frequent or as hefty, though, as they were yesterday. Overnight tonight, early frost, and then the cloud will increase. A milder start to the day tomorrow with a few outbreaks of patchy light rain and drizzle, and that will set the scene for tomorrow, really. Feeling milder. There will be some rain at times, particularly tomorrow evening and again into Saturday as well, but it will turn much colder once more into next week. That's the forecast.
Thank you very much. And we're back on track. Good morning, it's 8:49. Oh my goodness, how late are we? People will be fired. It's Thursday the 14th of March. I'm Iain Lee and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. The MP for Wickham will call for greater transparency and accountability within the NHS in Buckinghamshire when he addresses the Commons later. Pope Francis will celebrate his first Mass today as leader of the Roman Catholic Church and begin appointing senior staff at the Vatican. In sport, the England Rugby Union head coach Stuart Lancaster will name his side for the Six Nations Grand Slam decider against Wales this morning. Coming up, Andy Murray has complained about the grunting from opponent Carlos Berlocq as he reached the quarter-finals of the BNP Paribas Open. We've been getting your best tennis grunt impressions all morning, and before 9 we'll get some more.
On Saturday's Three Counties Sport, we give you the choice of another 4 live commentaries. In the Championship, Watford travel to struggling Barnsley.
Can he finish? Yes, he can! Christian Batokio!
In League One, MK Dons host Tranmere.
Whipped in, Chris Wheel. Can't get out, it's in! It's Ryan Lowe again!
And Stevenage face title-chasing Sheffield United.
Arrows in a low shot. What a great finish that was.
Luton are in conference action away to table-topping Wrexham.
And it's a great effort from Jake Howes.
Plus regular updates from Adams Park as Wickham play Northampton. Three Counties Sport, Saturday from 2, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, Andy Murray, the tennis player, has complained about the grunting from opponent Carlos Berlocq as he reached the quarter-finals of the BNP Paribas Open. He said it put him off. Well, we've got some audio exclusively from that match. Have a listen to this. What is that? Well, I've been asking for your best tennis grunts all morning. Here are a few from the very serious and professional Three Counties staff. Listen, I won't clip it. Let's hear your best grunt.
No.
Are you refusing an order from your superior? Sophie, give us a grunt.
I don't think I'm going to be able to.
Go on, try.
If I have no voice...
I will take full responsibility and I'll pay your salary for the rest of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the countdown to Justin D. Lee's tennis grunt. 3, 2, 1.
There you go. How was that?
That was rubbish. Do it again. Very, very poor. Dealey's grunt was very effeminate. Well, our grunting correspondent has been approaching you, the public, and saying, "Oi, gives a grunt." Of all the jobs, Justin, this has got to be one of the...
Well, I was going to say, you know, when I joined the BBC, I didn't quite see it in my job description. Yes, you need to go out and gather people's grunts across beds, hearts and bucks, but keep up to the high BBC standards. Andy Murray, clearly not happy.
No.
That grunt, it was a weird one, that one.
That guy was taking the mick.
I think he was. I think he was having a laugh. So I've been in beds, hearts and bucks this morning, gathering people's best tennis grunts. It's been an interesting one, and Ian, this is what happened. Well, it's a beautiful brisk morning here. Here's somebody about to go and play golf for the morning. Good for you, sir. What's your name and where are you from?
I'm Alan from Benjo, near Hertford.
Alan, you've got a lot of responsibility on your shoulder right now. Can you give us your best grunt? Once again? Do you feel like you look rather stupid?
Yes.
Well, Lorraine, before your grunt, which we're all looking forward to hearing, Andy Murray, you are a big tennis fan. Does he moan too much? What do you think?
Yes, he does moan too much.
When you hear him, does he kind of bring you down? It's just all doom and gloom, isn't it?
It's not enjoyable to watch sometimes, yes, because he does a lot of grunting and moaning, yes.
OK. Now, what about your grunts? 3, 2, 1, take it away. Can we have it once more, please? How do you feel now?
Better, thank you.
Well, here's somebody else who is prepared to give us their grunt across beds, hearts and bucks. What's your name and where are you from?
I'm from Neil Watson, Stansted Abbott.
OK, Neil. Can we have your best tennis grunt? And make this good. Wow, what on earth was that? I think I'm now going to walk away. I'm going to run away. See you later. Well, this has been great fun this morning. Here's our last contestant, if you like, giving us a grunt. Sir, what's your name?
John.
John, OK. Would you like to give us your finest tennis grunt?
Yes, I would.
OK, take it away. You see, I wish people could see this, because that wasn't just a grunt. You actually did a pretend serve as well, then.
Of course, because that's the best grunt.
Yeah. Taking this very seriously. Listen, have a good day.
Thank you.
Dealey, they've made your grunts look pathetic.
They have, I have to say. They took it very seriously. Here's mine again. There you go.
I'll talk about that later on when you get back to the studio, Justin. We need to have a chat. Now, sing hosannas, the Catholic Church has a new pope, Jorge Maria Bergoglio of Argentina. He's the first pope from South America and will be called Pope Francis I. It was just after 6 o'clock yesterday evening when white smoke poured from the roof of the building. That meant the cardinals had made their choice. Well, our religious affairs reporter, Alex Strangeways Booth, describes the moment.
The cardinals in the Sistine Chapel have chosen the new pope. The smoke is white. It's taken them 2 days of voting to come up with the name that they want as the new pope, and the smoke coming out of the Vatican chimney is white. The crowd has gone absolutely mad.
Well, we can join Alex in Rome now. Alex, what's it like there? I mean, it's not quite unique, but it's a very rare experience.
I think it is quite unique, actually. Not only have we had a pope who resigned, the first one in 600 years, but now we've got the first ever pope from outside Europe. We have a Latin American pope, so it's a real moment of history. And last night was the most extraordinary experience. There were tens of thousands of people in St. Peter's Square, and there was no guarantee that they were going to see the white smoke at all, but still they'd come in their thousands in the pouring rain. And that upswelling of noise when the white smoke billowed out of the chimney was an extraordinary experience.
What are people making of this appointment? Because he was kind of a rank outsider, wasn't he?
Well, he was a rank outsider, really, as far as the media and the pundits and the commentators were concerned this time. But actually, what's interesting about him is it's reported, really, that he came second to Benedict XVI in the last papal conclave in 2005. So although we're not supposed to know what goes on in the Sistine Chapel, one Italian journalist said that a cardinal had given him all the voting figures. And Francis I, as he is now known, had scored very highly and come a very close second. So he was a strong contender, but just not a very high-profile one.
He arrived on the balcony in very plain robes. Is this a sign of the kind of pope he's going to be?
I think so. Also, the Pope always wears those white robes when he comes out onto the balcony for the first time. Those are the traditional robes that he wears. Benedict did, have quite a good line in robes, actually, and was a little bit unusual in some of the things he chose to wear. Had a good line in hats as well. I think that he probably won't have that. He's a Jesuit priest. He lives a very simple life in Buenos Aires, lives in a little apartment, gets the bus and the tube to work, works with a lot of the poorer communities in Buenos Aires. He has a lot of moral clout in Argentina, so when he gives a sermon which may indirectly criticise the government, for example, about the lack of attention to the more vulnerable people in society, it gets headlines. So within his own country, he's got quite a high moral authority. He's very orthodox on sexual matters like gay marriage and contraception, but he speaks very strongly about social justice.
Alex Strangeways Booth in Rome, thank you very much indeed. Well, he won't be getting the bus and the tube anymore, will he? He'll be getting the Pope-mobile, of course. And, but boy, wasn't it nice do you remember when we used to own the Falklands? That was nice. And then we gave it back because that Pope came in. Oh, well, never mind. Well, after 9 o'clock, JVS is asking what I think is perhaps the best question I've ever heard him ask. Does the new Pope sound like your kind of guy? I think that's such a good question. Well, does he? It's weird. I found the whole thing absolutely fascinating, and it looked amazing. If you saw it on TV last night, the scenes outside that balcony were absolutely incredible. But there was a lot of guesswork going on. Well, he looks very serene, the new Pope. Well, after 9, JVS is asking, does the Pope sound like your kind of guy? Right, let's get the travel news now. Here's Sophie Tyler.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Heading north on the M1, one lane is blocked and there's queuing traffic following an accident. 3 cars involved between Newport Pagnell Services and Junction 15 at Northampton. And also the A45, that's London Road. We have delays there following an earlier accident. Motorbike involved in both directions between at Junction 15 of the M1 and Queen Eleanor's roundabout. Now westbound on the A40, one lane also closed following a broken down lorry between Swakely's roundabout and the M40. And also looks like we still have replacement bus service running on London Midland. That's between Watford Junction and St Albans Abbey following an earlier train fault. Everything else not looking too bad at the moment. Actually, the rest of the trains are moving nicely on the departure boards. Sophie Tyler, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Sophie. Well, there we go. We've covered failing hospitals, lip reading and grunts. What other show would go from hospitals to grunts? Quantum Leaps. Back tomorrow at 6. JVS is up next.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Iain. Good morning. Welcome to the JVS show. I'm Jonathan Vernon Smith. It's Thursday. And on today's big phone-in, does the new Pope sound like your kind of guy? Pope Francis will celebrate